the Patriots Pregame Show, fueled by Duncan.
He's throwing it toward Thornton, left corner of the end zone, caught! Touchdown New England!
The Patriots Pregame Show is your source for all the news and information before every game.
He took it to the house! Again!
Here we
and
go!
The Patriots take the lead!
With Matt Smith, Mike Dussault, Paul Perillo, and Tamara Brown.
And the Patriots have won their 6th Super Bowl title.
Patriots Nation, welcome to the Patriots Pregame Show, fueled by Duncan.
And happy Saturday, everybody. A little Saturday football here at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts for the Patriots Pregame Social, fueled by Duncan, where the 3-12 New England Patriots will host the 9-6 Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers win, and they're in. Patriots win, and they're spoilers. It's not a great day for football out there.
No?
But I'm looking forward to some football out there. Paul Perillo, Mike Dussault, Tamara Brown. Paul, what are you looking forward to today?
Oof. What a loaded question.
Come on, right out of the chute.
4 o'clock? No, more accurately, probably 6 o'clock. I don't know. Just can the Patriots sort of get off to another good start like they did last week? They played a good half last week. Can they stack 2 good halves together?
Is there momentum to be built off of last week?
It's too late.
Okay.
In my opinion, like anything that happens at this point is kind of, whatever. It's just kind of
I'm going to come back to that statement in a second. Tamara, what are you looking forward to today?
A clean game.
Okay.
I mean, we saw them get off to a fast start last week, and turnovers derailed them last week. You can't have 3 of them against a team like the Buffalo Bills and expect to win, and you're not going to win until you stop beating yourself, which you have heard that time and time again this season. And I don't want to point just to Ramondre Stevenson in this. Drake May has had his fair share of turnovers as well, but this team has to play clean if they want a chance to win.
And the elements today certainly are not in favor of that.
No.
For sure.
When I walked in and saw this weather, the first thing I thought about was Ramondre Stevenson. Because it's like...
No, it wasn't. You said, I got to stand out in this.
Yes, you're right.
So Ramondre was the second thing.
The first thing was, I have to stand outside and do a report in the rain. The second was Ramondre Stevenson.
Yeah.
Especially today, if they don't bench him and they start him and give him another opportunity, I feel like the pressure would be even more on you today when the conditions are slippery.
And as my colleague Paul Perillo likes to mention and says it, and I don't know that anybody wants to listen to it, Ramondre certainly gets the bulk of the criticism there. But his backup, Antonio Gibson, put the ball on the carpet last week as well. The difference, the Patriots recovered that one. Yeah. That's the difference. But so ball security is an issue. Michael, what are you looking forward to today in your nice, clean sweater vest?
Well, thank you very much. I feel nice.
Mark Capello says...
I got the stamp of approval this morning.
Yes.
Thank you. No one knows who that is, but that's great. Very specific for me. I want to see Drake May light it up, and I want to see him not turn the ball over. I want to see a little Caden Wallace at right tackle. Love to see a little Cole Strange at center, maybe. Might be Lucida Smith. We'll see how that goes. But I'd like to see a little bit of a shootout today. I'd like to see that's for both these last games. I look, we're at this point now. We're not talking about tanking anymore. I'm just thinking about draft position. Chargers have something to play for today, so it's going to be competitive. I think the way they come out and play. I don't really care about what the defense does, to be honest, because I think that ship has sailed. I don't, when you get to week 17 and you're still talking about run fits and tackling, the ship has sailed for the defense. So I don't need all of a sudden, hey, the defense played great today in week 17 out of nowhere, and we won, and now we're picking 8th.
Ironically, I think they did play great last week.
They had a good game plan, and they did play competitive, and that I'd be okay with that. But, look, I think just bottom line for me, I want to see Drake May put some points up. Let's get him a game where he doesn't throw a pick, or doesn't fumble the ball. No turnovers for Drake May today. Everybody else, it is what it is. But this is the team. I want to see Drake May show a little of this Justin Herbert action, go back and forth maybe a little bit with Justin Herbert. As you guys mentioned, the weather's a factor, so that might, it might not be quite an offensive onslaught given how these teams are constructed anyway. But I just want to see Drake move the ball, put some points up.
You guys usually know the answers to these questions more than I do, but isn't the rain supposed to be done soon?
Yeah. I think it's off and on.
Like not even during the game? It won't be raining anymore? So, and it's unseasonably warm.
Yeah, especially compared to last week when it was 13.
I'm not even going to get one of the things I wanted to sort of check off my list in another bad weather game. Like it looks like it's going to be okay at game time.
Big market tease.
Mid 40s and no rain.
I would just say
December.
The only thing for me is that it's definitely not mild for the Chargers probably. So maybe for them it's probably a little bit of a little bit of a challenge.
Big
playing in
market
the 40s.
tease. Tamara Brown will have our full weather recap coming up in about 45 minutes or so.
Are you bringing one of those big thermometers out with you?
I am not, but
Matt
I will have
Matt
a
loves
big
thermometers.
umbrella
Matt loves
out with
thermometers.
me.
Big umbrella.
Patriots
There you
umbrella.
go.
Big
So-
umbrella.
So, Mike, you're telling me that, it doesn't matter about run fits, defense. Paul's saying momentum can be built. There's 2 games left to evaluate, and there's evaluating going on as far as the players are concerned and the coaches are concerned. So I would argue that, that it does matter because I think decisions, I'm not saying that a final decision will, maybe a final decision will be made based on the way that they play these last 2 games out. Isn't that fair?
Oh, it's totally fair. I'm just saying I don't want the defense to suddenly, kind of pull together for a miraculous performance and in the process hurt the Patriots draft position.
Got it.
I just think we know what we know about this defense now, and it's been in a bad year for them. They're down in pretty much every statistical category. They're down near the bottom of the league. There's nothing for them to really hang their hat on. I think they do play good man defense at times on the back end with their secondary, but overall, I just don't want any questions heading into the offseason that this defense needs a significant
Overhaul.
influx of talent where we're going to spend a lot of time talking about tackles and wide receivers. There should be some time spent talking about linebackers and edge players.
Yeah,
and defensive
I
tackles
sort of
too.
agree
Very
with Mike,
fair.
and I do think that the Drake May part of it that Mike unfolded, that one's relevant because he's going to be your guy going forward. I would rather not have any sort of false hope implanted. I would rather avoid a situation like the Chicago Bears found themselves in at this time last year, when you finish the season strong and everything is on the upswing, and you decide that a coach that you're not sure about, well, maybe he is the answer, and then halfway through the following year you got to fire him. And I'm not talking apples to apples with Gerard Mayo, because I don't really think Gerard Mayo's really in that same kind of a situation as a first-year guy. Much different situation than Matt Eberflus. But to Mike's point, if the defense goes out and plays a great game, that doesn't, sort of
Take 'em off the hook.
obscure the first 13 games of the year where they were kind of, ineffective. So I would rather, not necessarily have those kinds of things. In terms of young guys that are, Cole Strange and Caden Wallace now, not enough. Great. I'm glad that we're going to get. It certainly looks like we're going to get a chance to see Cole Strange because Ben Brown's out, and I'd rather have him play than not. But I'm not going to know that he's the answer next year based on 2 games.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. All right. We did a little tease there on what we're looking for today, but let's hit to the keys of the game, please, Matt.
You've waited all week for it.
The whole team's in the locker room right now just listening to this, waiting to hear what you're going to say.
Here are the Patriots pregame socials, keys to the game.
So a quick perusal of these. Who's got the catchiest riff going? And I'll just say I think it might be Mr. Dussault, so I'll let you elaborate, please, on your key.
So I was riffing off of, with the old key, stop the run, have some fun. So today it's stop the run or it won't be fun. Just going back to what I spoke about earlier, that I think is the baseline for this defense. They've had trouble all year against the run. If there's been one consistent element that they just haven't been able to solve, I think it's been the run defense. And, today I think Chargers are going to want to come in here and want to run the ball. It sounds like J.K. Dobbins is going to be back. He was their lead back early in the year, was over 100 yards. I mean, every time they were over 100 yards, they seem to win. So I just think they're going to come in with an attitude of it might be a little wet out there. Let's do what we do, run the ball on this Patriots team that can't stop the run. And it's easy to see if they're able to run that the game's just going to unfold in their favor. They're going to be in favorable third down distances. The other part of this, too, is that talking to the defenders this week in the locker room, just explosive runs. The explosive runs, we saw it last week.
Against Buffalo.
I mean, it's one thing to, give up 4 or 5 yards a clip, and they do that. But then there's also these 40, 50-yard runs that, go to the house like they did last week. And I just think overall it's so demoralizing to a defense when they're going to run. They keep running. We've seen it all year long. The Jags, being a prime example of that. So I just think for a baseline for the Patriots to be competitive today and make it interesting, I think they have to stop the run right out of the gate.
And the weather, as we've been talking about a lot already out of the chute, I think would be conducive to the Chargers trying to run it,
Makes sense.
Why not?
Makes sense.
Why not? Tamara?
So my key is second best this week. Is that what you're saying?
Maybe.
Is that going next?
Maybe.
No.
Deal with it.
I just was looking. I was looking in your direction.
No, I will say, usually he goes to me because my keys make no sense. So now that you went first
You have
today,
to be, I know, you gotta get your mystery back.
I do. I'll work on that in 2025. That would be my New Year's resolution.
There you go.
Be more mysterious.
Yes. Mine is be Grinch-like. It's the holiday season, so I feel like I had to do a holiday spin on my key, and The Grinch is my favorite Christmas movie. This is a Patriots team that likes to give a lot of gifts to the other team, and it is the gift-giving season, but this week they have to be stingy. They have to be the Grinch. They have to hate giving away gifts to the Los Angeles Chargers, who are plus 10 in the turnover differential. They have 19 takeaways on the season, so if the Patriots want to have a chance in this game, they have to hold on to the football. We saw what it did to them last week. They had 3 turnovers. It took them out of the game where they got off to a really fast start.
Touche. Good one. Paul?
Yeah, I'm just looking back at last week, and that's the formula. Can they sustain any of that kind of success that they had early on in the game? The first 2 drives, they were very efficient. They moved down the field. They put some points on the board. Can they do that? Can they repeat that performance? So it's just rinse, repeat. Figure out a way to get off to that start, and unlike last week where, once you got to the 3rd drive, your offense went south for the rest of the game, they need to maintain it a little bit. I like the balance they came out with last week. I like the efficiency on 3rd down that they came out with. I think they converted their first 4 or 5 3rd downs. And some of them were not easy ones. They're 3rd and longs with some pressure on Drake May. Show that you can sort of build on that performance that they had at the start of last game. Start this game in a similar fashion, but maintain it.
So the old song goes, Saturday night's all right for fighting. It's not a night game. It's a day game, 1 o'clock. The entire country will have their eyes on Foxborough, Massachusetts.
Rolling Stones,
today.
correct? Is that the Rolling Stones you're talking about? Or
I
not the
think
Bay City Rollers?
I think that's a little Elton John.
Elton John.
Elton John.
Saturday night.
Oh, Saturday.
Yeah. That's the
the
Bay
Bay
City
City
Rollers.
Keep on dancing to the rocket.
Saturday night. Saturday night.
I'm getting serious about my music. I told you.
And this, I feel like I'm a broken record here down the stretch, but I want to see a little fight.
Oh,
I don't mean literally, although I wouldn't mind that either, as long as it's not really cheap shoddy or anything. Show me some grit. Show me some balls. Let's see what you can do as far as that's concerned. I think that's necessary as they're playing these last games out. Who wants to be here? Who wants to be part of something going forward, and who doesn't? Let's make those lists and make sure that we have them.
You know who I think about, Matt, when you say that is Keon White. I mean, I know a lot of stories came out this week about, Keon. I was there in the locker room where he expressed some dissatisfaction. What kind of effort is he going to get out there today? I mean, he's the kind of guy that looks like he might come out and play angry and, really get after it, or maybe not. I don't know. It's interesting. He's a guy in the spotlight, second-year player. A lot of people really high on him coming out of training camp. And, I mean, I think he's had a pretty good year. I think overall the lack of depth on defense, I think, has hurt Keon White from really being the player that he might be able to be. But I don't know if I'm quite ready to say, like, he's a superstar in waiting. I think he's a pretty solid player. But I still think there are questions about how he kind of fits in and what his full-time role is.
So expand, if you would, please, Mike, because that became the media story yesterday, in his comments. And I think in talking a little bit just around the offices and everything, I think that there were people who were, well, what's he really trying to say? Is he being hard on himself? Is he being super critical and he's not happy with the way he played? Or was it very obvious that maybe he's not happy with the way he's being used or the way the coaching staff is devising game plans? How did you read and hear his comments?
Yeah, well, I mean, just, credit to Karen Gregian for Mass Live. I think she wrote the main piece. But he also spoke to us in the locker room. I guess it was Thursday. I'm losing track of days now. But, I think the thing that is interesting was that out of the gate, he was kind of critical of himself. But then even in the piece that Karen wrote, it seemed like there was more. It wasn't just, I need to figure out, what I'm doing and how I can be better against the run. Then there were little nuggets of but it's more than that too. So I guess I would just default to, I've found in the last couple of years, every loss makes things more miserable. And everybody gets more and more upset, and it just gets harder and harder. So I'd file it under that without knowing specifics, but I just think overall this is a defense that's really struggling from top to bottom, and you're seeing Keon White kind of let that frustration boil over a little bit.
I feel like you saw that earlier in the season too, where there were comments post-game from certain people saying people need to basically stop trying to play hero ball and stick to their assignment. And there were a lot of people that were insinuating that there were some people on the team that were doing what was best for them versus what's best for the team. That was a comment I feel like 3 weeks straight that we were getting in the post-game locker room.
Do your job mantra.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Paul, you and I talked a little bit about this yesterday. I think Keon White's a nice player. I think he's got the kind of tools that a defensive coach would look at and go, we can do something with this guy. But as Mike mentioned earlier, he's not a foundational guy.
Right.
Maybe he's more of a situational or role player, and I don't know that they've really found what that role is now in his second year.
Yeah, and I do think that he has ability to contribute. We've seen it. I think, as Mike said, I think he's had a pretty good year overall. I think people, looked at the sack totals coming out of the gates. That's not necessarily the kind of player he is. He's never been that in college. He's not a huge pass rusher, but I do think he can have some value. I'm with Mike. I thought it was a little bit of both. I thought he was very hard on himself in his performance stopping the run. But I also think it was not hard to understand that he's not happy with the coaches. And he said, we'll see what happens these last 2 games, and then we'll see what the future holds. So it was kind of ominous as to what exactly, he means. Is he going to,
what does
go
that
into
mean?
the offseason and request a trade? Yeah. Does he not feel like he's a fit in this system? Are some of the guys that are here, will there be changes? And maybe he's talking about that. I don't know exactly what he meant by that, but I do think he took accountability for his own play and said he wasn't playing well enough. Yep. And that, to me, was my big takeaway. I think that's a good sign for a young player. The rest of it is kind of frustration that comes, as Mike said, with being 3-12. You're frustrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's a thoughtful kid. And I do think he, I think he wants to be good.
I liked it. I'll take a guy who cares, and that's a guy who cares.
I think he cares for sure.
He definitely does.
I said that on the Thursday Patriots Unfiltered show, and then I didn't know about the second part of those quotes that Karen got on Friday, which was much different tenor than what he said on Thursday. But I stand by it. I think he's a guy that cares, and they could use more guys that care.
Yeah. I think the defense, that's something that stood out to me, though, was just generally that, I think Drake, you can feel the frustration with him. But, not everybody. But on the defensive side of the ball, I find whenever those guys talk, you can feel how hard of a year it's been on them. And I think that they've been a little bit shorthanded, but nobody expected this. Nobody expected the defense to fall off this much. I think anybody could have reasonably accepted that, look, there's going to be a dip without Bill Belichick, without the play caller, Steve Belichick, who's been here. You can't just take those elements out and, no problem. Then you compound it with the injuries, but still, it's been, like I said, bottom of the league. And that is a certain point. There's no excuses to be bottom of the league. There's even the defenses that have been really hit hard with injuries, a lot of those defenses can find ways, still be competitive, still find a way to get off the field on third down consistently, still find the way to take the ball away. And it's just when you look across the board, this defense isn't able to really do any of those things consistently.
And I want to go back a few weeks that Paul mentioned DeMarcus Covington pre-bye and how he seemed to be in his weekly tete-a-tetes with the media. And there was always a little confidence with DeMarcus and clarity among his comments and everything like that. And, Paul, you thought you witnessed a definitive switch in him post-bye, the way he talked.
Do not know what week it was, but there was one week that he was not the same as the others.
Right.
Every other week he is sort of, I would say, borderline brash. In talking about the defense and the performance. And there was one week that he sounded like just defeated. And I don't remember which week it was, but it might be the one coming. It might have been the week after the Arizona game. That performance. I don't know which week it was, but it was recently. He just sounded different to me. But I thought he was back like the way he was sounding earlier in the year this past week. So
More confident.
Yeah, I actually would say, sort of irrationally so.
Okay.
I don't think that the performance has been all that good for the most part. And you sort of cherry picking the bad plays out. How many times they say, a couple long runs, here and there. Now, this past game against Buffalo, given the opponent, I think it was one of the stronger defensive performances of the season. Mm-hmm. Now, I know that they had trouble against the run. I think that's what you got to do against Buffalo.
Pick your poison.
You got to give up something. I thought their coverage was really strong in that game. So I can sort of understand if Covington was feeling better about the performance after that game than most, but we've heard him sort of talk like that after other games as well.
This is the pregame social fueled by Duncan, and here's a question for the crowd. If your team runs on their fans, what do the fans run on? When you kick off your day with Dunkin', we're with you all the way to the end zone. Make a run to Dunkin'. It's the official coffee run of the New England Patriots. As we've got the NFL Network pregame show on, and there's all this talk about young quarterbacks. Where do you guys? How would you rank him? Isn't the right way I want to say it? Your thoughts on Herbert?
Yeah, I mean, really good. I mean, look, he's got all the talent in the world. I think.
Was this year 3 or year 4?
5.
5.
Okay, wow.
I think the way I looked at Justin Herbert 2 years ago is kind of similar to the way I look at Josh Allen, which was got all the tools and, man, what I wouldn't give to have one of those kind of guys. And now that we kind of have one of those guys, now I look at Justin Herbert through the prism or the lens of how do you get to the next level with this guy? Like, how do you avoid kind of being what the Chargers have been, which is, stuck in neutral. He's, had good years. The coach just got fired. They brought a new coach in this year. And I think that's what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to, we got a great quarterback. How do we build around him? How do we really make something magical? Because to me, the Chargers are an example of just because you have the quarterback doesn't necessarily mean everything else is going to just fall in line.
Right.
That's a little bit of an interesting, way it's unfolded for them. And who knows, maybe this is, the year that they start to build on Harbaugh. And, there's always that personality thing that comes with the Chargers where, they're a Southern California team. They're soft. They got to come here in the weather. They're not going to be able to do it. We'll see if they can shake that identity and really, form something new around Justin Herbert.
Saw something that they're 4-1 in their last 5 games and the temperature's under 40 or something like that. So I just don't. I don't really think that holds true to them, especially with Harbaugh, because they don't want to play that way anymore anyway, which to me is a mistake. But
there's a toughness about this team that Harbaugh's unquestionably brought.
He's trying to make them a power football team, and I just think that's really a mistake. But I think they're doing what they need to do because they don't have really any weapons to choose from. They had they let them all go in the offseason, but it also means that you're not as high-powered as the contenders for the most part. So I understand what Harbaugh is doing, and they're exponentially better because of Jim Harbaugh.
Correct.
Their coaching has improved dramatically over Brandon Staley. So they're in a better situation than they were. I like Mike's point about just because you have the quarterback. And I actually think, for all the talk of comps, I think this is the guy that more closely resembles Drake May than Josh Allen.
That's a good one.
100%.
And I love Justin Herbert. I will say the one thing, even being firmly in the Herbert camp, and I don't know how to identify it, but there's a little something missing from Justin Herbert, that he does not win quite as many games as I think he should. Mm-hmm. And more often than not, they're not necessarily something you can point to say, well, they lost because of him. But he's one of those guys that sort of, at the end of the day, you look up and he's 9-6 instead of, say, 11-4 right now, and you don't know why.
Yeah.
One of these. This isn't one of those teams to me for the Chargers. This is a team that probably is doing well to be 9-6. I don't think it's an overly talented roster. You look top to bottom, they're missing a lot, but they're getting better. And as I said, Harbaugh, I think, really has instilled, as Matt says, that sort of a toughness about them that they want to play with. They don't run the ball well, but they're going to run the ball, and they're going to make you, make sure you showed up for a physical, hard-fought game.
And they're a little less explosive, maybe, aren't they this year?
Yeah. They don't. They have Ladd McConkey is far and away their best receiver, and he's a rookie, and he's kind of, a limit. He's having a good rookie year. Quentin Johnston, kind of a disappointment last year. This year he's been much better, but not a volume guy. He's got some touchdowns, big play guy, but not consistent. Has a lot of drops, Mike.
Yeah.
So they're missing some of those weapons.
I just wonder how they feel where they took a little bit of a reset, not quite as extreme as the Bills did this year, but moving on from Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, those were kind of the
Austin Eckler, the guys that
those guys were the guys, and to let those guys go, and now to have a pretty good season and be on the verge of making the playoffs, I think it bodes well for them and their program. I think some of the young guys on defense have started to step up a little bit for them. They got a good balance, I think, on that side of the field. Some of their edge players age up a little bit. So, I'll be interested to see how they, stack and start to build. I mean, this is what this is what you want out of the first year, Jim Harbaugh down there. It's showing that this team kind of knows how to win here right out of the gate, even if they are a little bit limited.
Paul mentioned him. My guess is the Patriot fans today will have their eye on number 15 for the Chargers, and that's Ladd McConkey.
Absolutely.
Paul, you sort of turned your nose up a little bit when I mentioned McConkey. He's not your kind of guy. You're generally not the stick mover.
Oh no, he's a good
kind
player.
of a guy.
I like McConkey. I just don't. I think it's very easy right now, and
Very easy.
we're nothing if not predictable around here. Big front page of the Globe story yesterday. A big picture of Lad McConkey. So the Patriots fans know what they did, and they traded down from the top of the second round. They moved down a handful of spots with the Chargers. The Chargers took Lad McConkey. The Patriots ended up with Jalen Polk. Obviously, bad move. Can't sugarcoat it. We're Patriots.com. We're not going to sit there and say, no, Jalen Polk is going to be better. No, they got the wrong. They traded down and let a better player go. I mean, that's what it looks like right now after one season. I just don't think that you're going to be looking at Lad McConkey as like this all-pro kind of guy down the road. I think he's a good player. I think he was drafted exactly where he should have been. In day two. This is a guy Fred really liked a lot. I think was a productive player at Georgia, athletic slot kind of guy. I like Lad McConkey. I do. I'm not telling you that I don't. But I don't. I just. It was a bad trade. Can we just it was a bad trade. I mean, there's no two ways around it. You moved down and got a wide receiver who's not as good as all the wide receivers that were drafted in the area that you were in. Right? So far.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only 1 year.
And for all the attention that Lad McConkey gets, I mean, let Deuce do his little defense thing. I mean, Tavondre Sweat, Braden Fisk, and Cooper DeJean were the next three guys who went after Polk. And those are three defenders who have all played really well. I mean, we saw Fisk here. DeJean's been all over the place. And
an argument could be made. I'd rather have all three of those guys than Lad McConkey.
Yeah.
Because Fisk and DeJean in particular. Sweat's kind of like, he's a really good interior defensive lineman, but, that's one of your guys, Mike.
You don't love those guys anyway, Paul, right?
Yeah, I just think that you can have, Devon Godchaux.
But, I would just say within the context, though, it's like Paul said, like any one of those three guys, whether you like them or hate them, they would all be playing a ton for this
all three of those
defense.
guys would be starters.
And I mean, have given you a lot more than you got out of Jalen Polk in his 12 catches.
Absolutely.
Right. This is predictable kind of a comp. Welker, Edelman for McConkey.
A little bigger. I mean, I'd probably go more towards Edelman just because he's a little bit bigger. But, he knows how to get open. He's a real master of dialing down routes. I mean, there's definitely elements of those guys in there.
This guy has more talent than those guys.
Yeah, I mean,
I will say McConkey's got
yeah.
more talent.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if he's going to pan out. That's a big ask.
Right.
But he comes into the league higher regarded than any of those
Like
three.
the way you saw Edelman develop into a route runner by year 6, 7 in his career, that was kind of the skill that McConkey had. It's just, he's a little bit smaller, he's a little thinner. I mean, I think he missed just one game this year to injury so far, but that's something to watch with him. But no question, you throw him out there with Drake May and his ability to get open and the confidence that inspires that he can create separation. It's it's certainly an element. You can understand why you'd like to have it in the mix here.
So the Patriots aren't going to be able to match up Marcus Jones with him. Jones is scratched, will not play today.
IR,
and has been placed on IR. If they're going to play man-to-man, Mike, who is it that gets the McConkey assignment, would you guess?
I mean, I'm always open to, moving Gonzalez around and matching up that way if you have to. I mean, I think last week you saw Jonathan Jones a little bit more in the slot than we have seen him, and I thought he did a pretty good job there lined up against Shakir. So probably Jonathan Jones, I think, makes the most sense, and allow Alex Austin to stay on the outside. That seems like where he's a little bit more fit. So I would predict today Jonathan Jones will see a good dose of Lad McConkey.
Admittedly, I'm a fan, and I liked some of the things that Mike Pellegrino had to say about Jonathan Jones this week. I mean, there's a guy who's got his players' backs.
Yep.
And, wasn't too revealing, but wanted to make sure that fans knew that Jonathan Jones has been going through a tough go of it this year. Hasn't always been 100%, but always willing to do what it was. And maybe last week against Buffalo, we saw a little bit more of the Jonathan Jones that people are accustomed to seeing in here. He played pretty well last week against Buffalo.
He did, and I mean, I wonder where Jonathan Jones is at. I mean, he's going to be a free agent this year. At times we saw them move him to safety a little bit more, which isn't anything new. That's happened plenty of times in recent seasons, but you just wonder, with some of these cornerbacks, they start to slow down a little bit. You start to play more safety. So is he slowing down? I mean, I don't think anybody would really make an argument, and I certainly wouldn't make the argument that Jonathan Jones had this versatility to play mostly outside and inside. I think he kind of was a slot, and they like him, and he's got okay size, and he's got good speed. And, at a certain point, they just said, let's just play him on the outside and keep it going. But I just think what we saw last week is kind of what he's ideally fit to do, is to play in the slot, to play against those guys, especially with his experience going against younger receivers. So I don't know. I don't know what the end game is with him. Do you move on from him this year? There's some good cornerbacks potentially on the free agency market that I think you could get younger. You could improve that outside position, but he's showing right now he still can play a little bit. And when he's in the slot, I mean, today he might be effective.
And as you're making those decisions, Mike, I would just say, where they've been in another place lacking, I think, is leadership and guys that they need that they can rely on in that locker room. And Jones, for all of his ups and downs, at least in the locker room, has been a steady presence there, as opposed to a guy like Bentley who's been hurt, as opposed to a guy like Andrews who's been hurt. The cup is not running over of leadership guys in that locker room, and I would put Jonathan Jones as one of those guys.
I think it's a great question, man. I'd also put Dietrich Wise, who's going to be a free agent this year, into that as well. Dietrich Wise, I'd put a little bit more on the end of we need to upgrade. He's kind of plateaued. He is what he is.
Good situational player.
Good situational player, but at a certain point, I think this team has to ask themselves, especially on the defensive side of the ball, of do we have to take 1 foot out of the old era? Do we have to kind of move on and say, look, we love Dietrich Wise. He's a leader. I mean, you can't ask for more from the guy on and off the field. Same with Jonathan Jones. But at some point, are the new guys saying, these guys are telling us things that happened 8 years ago when they were good. And, it's just not ringing true anymore. We need to go and maybe turn the page a little bit and let some young guys learn these lessons and then, let them learn them on their own rather than still having these guys from the dynasty years who, this is how it used to be when I played here. Young guys need to hear new messages, and I think that's something they have to consider this year when they look at this defense and how they're going to improve it and change it. And I think that's a spot there's going to be some significant change this offseason. Personnel, coaching, scheme, all on the table to be altered.
Let's put a pin in that, Mike, and come back to it. But first, because it's 1:15, let's go to Behind Enemy Lines, Matt.
You know the view from New England, but what about the view from the other side?
And that's why you're our favorite pregame show guest every year.
You guys know you tell everybody that.
Oh, yeah.
I was on with you guys in 2018, Thursday Night Football.
Yep.
And I was told I was the favorite guest of the show.
Nope.
No.
Time now to go behind enemy lines.
My God, it's coming right for us.
And joining us this week on Behind Enemy Lines is nobody.
Oh.
Matt.
What?
Matt Morrell, as is usual.
Yeah.
Worked the phones, worked the interweb, worked the text machine, had messages out to more than 3 people to ask to see if they'd like to join us in the pregame show. No names necessary here. He didn't get a response. He didn't get a response. So the only reason I say that out is, hey, I'm busy. I've got obligations before the game and everything like that. I can't join you. Matt Morrell deserves a response. That's all. Is that a fair one?
I know. Well,
I think you got one right before the show.
No.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to do that.
Just, Matt, go out in the hallway. There's just Chargers people walking back and forth.
No.
Just grab one, put them in a little chokehold.
We want somebody that wants to be here, or at least wants to grace Matt with a response that he wants to be here, or not. Let's go back to your point about leadership, because I think, Mike, quite honestly, I think that's a place where they're sorely lacking. Yeah. And how do you balance can the guy play anymore? What can they give us on a snap basis versus I need somebody to be able to carry that message? And I don't know that message is necessarily, here's what we did during the dynasty years, but it's about accountability. It's about being to meetings on time. It's about making sure that you lift on the days that you have to lift, taking care of your body, hydrating and everything like that. And I don't know that they have enough guys on this team that can do that Mayo and his staff can count on to carry that message. Because there's some sort of that message that they're delivering to the players that they need the players to disseminate.
Yeah, well, I mean, my pushback on that would be if you're keeping guys around who can't play anymore just because they can get to meetings on time, like you're going in the wrong direction.
And I'm not saying that's the case. I hope that's not the case.
No, and but this team has to find their identity, and that's maybe one of the most disappointing things about this season across the board was that there is no identity to this team. There's no identity to the offense. Other than the identity is the bad things, the consistent turnovers, the consistent in-game brain farts, all those kind of things that have consistently showed up. But the good stuff, the things of this is what we can rely on. And, you hear it during the week with the press conferences, and the reporters ask, do you feel like your offense has an identity? Do you feel like you have an identity? And they dance around the question a little bit, but again, the only identity that they've established this year is that they're not that great and that they're really inconsistent in the key moments, and they don't know how to win yet. Maybe that's the biggest thing, and that's one thing I would say with a new coaching staff over with the Chargers is that they seem like they have a little bit of understanding how to win games. The Patriots don't. Whenever the game is on the line or there for the taking, they wilted this year, and that's, we talk so much. What do you want to see at the end of this year? And we talk about, winning a few games down the stretch, and maybe they'll be playing the Chargers, and the Chargers are up for a playoff game. I'm disappointed. I don't know who this team is.
And that would be another one of the reasons, Matt, at the very top of the show, like what you could get. Like, the feeling of winning is not irrelevant because they don't have, Mike, you mentioned all the guys that are sort of, there's not that many left that have been around that understood success. And now you're probably in a situation, I think people are looking at like a massive overhaul. I don't think you're going to get that from a personnel standpoint. I think you're probably going to have, I don't know, upwards of 35 of these guys back next year, maybe more. I mean, almost everybody's under contract.
43. They're eighth most. They have eighth most players under contract for next year. With
so
43.
You're dealing with almost all of these guys will be back, and a lot of so 43 guys are under contract in 2025. I'm going to say 85% of those guys have never really experienced any success in the league. Mm-hmm. Like I'm talking about from a team standpoint, not an individual standpoint. Yeah. So that's hard. Right. And it's hard to just flip the switch and say, okay, we're going to be good this year. And this is what it takes to be good. To Matt's point, getting all the things done that need to be done for winning programs.
Yeah. And even guys like Devon Godshaw, guys that you think have been here a while, but they don't go back to 2018. They've been here during these lean years too.
Hunter Henry,
Jelani Tavai, and I think I brought it up on the show this week. It's just what point does losing become the culture around here? That's what you have to be careful of. That you don't have any guys that know how to win, and that's how things you just see it happen. It snowballs. Every loss, it gets a little harder in that locker room for everybody, and it's you see how it's easy. That once you lose one, you lose another, and then you lose another, and then you turn on each other. It picks up momentum, and it's hard to break.
So clearly, there has been an emphasis on the play of Drake May, and he is a bright spot and a building block for the future. What can Drake May do as he ascends to a sophomore season, where he doesn't stand for any of those things? And he knows this is what you need to do to be a winning player. And I'm not going to tolerate, the illegal shifts, the illegal motions. And his standard becomes the standard, at least for that side of the ball.
It's a great question, Matt. I think that's maybe the key to this Patriots offseason is Drake May fully taking ownership, holding guys accountable, being the one who's setting the standard rather than he's a rookie, he's learning, and I think that's why last two games, love to see him not turn the ball over. I mean, I just think that's the on-field thing. That's his little bugaboo that he's been battling. Everything else you can say pretty great, but if he can get rid of those, and then this offseason, I go back to just the receivers. Like, these guys have been so inconsistent on and off the field, across the board, all season long. They need a kick in the butt, and it's Drake May that has to deliver it. He needs to be the Brady who, not necessarily same thing of like icing guys out when they don't know what they're doing, but starting to hold guys accountable that when you're running short of the sticks on third down, well, I'm not looking your way anymore. Or, when the ball's going off your hands and flying into the other team, then I'm not looking your way as much anymore. He needs to be that guy. He needs to take full ownership of this team. It needs to be Drake May's team in 2025.
Yeah, and to your point, too, about the mistakes and the turnovers, let's, when are we going to make the transition between Drake May is the rookie quarterback or he's the Patriots starter quarterback? Because everybody seems to think unequivocally they've got the guy, myself included. But I've sort of made that transition. Okay, now I know he can play. Now I need to see some of these things improve and some of these things get eliminated. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't treat him like a rookie quarterback anymore.
Right.
Some people still do. Yeah. Some don't. I'm not saying that no one has. It's starting to come now. Like, these turnovers got to stop. Alex Van Pelt isn't doing it anymore. He's holding them accountable. Yeah. 15 turnovers and 10 starts is a lot.
And I think May's saying, I'm not a rookie anymore. And nobody's a rookie anymore. And I like that. Now,
I like it too.
I don't expect May to bury a guy like Baker. I don't expect May to bury a guy like Polk. I think he's been outwardly very supportive of those guys. But I think maybe some of the subtle things that we could look at is how definitively does he have their back, going forward. because he can't prop those guys. He can only prop those guys up for so much before he needs to cut bait and say, we need guys who are going to make plays.
I think you're seeing him cutting bait because he's not throwing those guys the ball anymore.
Yeah.
To Mike's point.
Don't listen to what they say. Watch what they do.
Everybody, you like my little adages. I like that. He just threw my adage back at me. I like that.
I mean, I wasn't here when Welker was here. I got this vibe from him, though. But I was here when Edelman was here, and I definitely got this vibe from him of, like, a lot of this stuff we've seen with the wide receivers this year, unacceptable for Julian Edelman to, for those kind of mistakes. If this stuff was happening in his room, I mean, he would be, happily miserable? Like, he would be pissed off. And you just don't get that vibe from this receiver room. It's, man, we're trying hard, man. We're gonna get it. That was my bad. Like I mean, I've been beating the my bad stuff into the dirt the last few weeks, but it's not the kind of room where you're holding each other accountable. And you knew, like, when I looked at Wes Welker as a fan, I'm like, that guy's here to play today. He knows what he's going to do. When it's 3rd and 5, he's going to get you 6. He's not going to come back to 3rd and 4 and be like, yeah, that was my bad on that one. Like, that stuff didn't exist with those teams that were really good. And that's the stuff they got to get rid of. It's just too many excuses, too many, people happy to admit that they made the mistake. Stop making the mistake.
You know what I find funny is Brady, especially toward the end, started to get a lot of criticism for his lack of patience.
Mm-hmm.
And now people, and this is not a criticism of you, Mike, because I agree with you. I think people are starting to say, hey, Drake, this should take ownership of this. Yeah. This is your offense. This is your team right now. You need to hold these guys accountable. And they're absolutely right. If you think that way, I think that is part of it.
Yeah.
So, like, you're a Brady, like, you give N'Keal Harry a break. He's just got, no. Figure out what you're supposed to do. Jacoby Myers got the ball thrown to him as a rookie because he was where he was supposed to be.
Yep.
Maybe Drake needs a little red ass in him. Do you think?
I do. I mean, and
he might have it, by the way.
And he might have it. And like,
I think he's got it. He's very supportive publicly.
Yes.
I think he has it where he needs
I agree.
it.
Which is I think a little, might be a little bit frustrating for a fan at first, where you want it to be this, like, oh, nice guy that's always happy. And like, for you to be a winning quarterback, you need to kind of be an a-hole.
Yes.
Especially because it has to all go through you. I mean, I just remember, like, as a fan watching Brady just walk onto the field, to walk to the huddle, and just the control and the swag that he had. And I hate holding him up as like Drake's got to be like Brady, but I think any quarterback in this league that's good. I mean, I think even like Bo Nix and like a little bit of his intensity that you've seen as a rookie, where it's like Paul said, it's kind of like at one point you're like, we want to play well for the rookie, we got to help this kid out. Rather, it's got to change to, I better play good or else Drake's not going to throw me the football anymore. He's going to glare at me as I'm walking back to the huddle. Like, that's the kind of steps that I think would be, absolutely huge for this offense, going into 2025.
All right, much more to discuss as you're watching and listening to the Patriots pregame social fueled by Duncan. You can call us at 855-PATS-500. That's a TPX hotline. And please email the show at podcast@patriots.com. When we return, Inactives, a weather report, and we'll get into one of the wide receivers that I have a question to Mr. Dussault about is, can they count on this guy moving forward? This is the Patriots pregame social fueled by Duncan.
You've got to watch your NFL team every.
Thank you for downloading the.
With FedEx One Rate, you can ship to your student for a simple, predictable flat rate. Send a box full of home-baked treats that say, "Your father and I miss you." Or send a box full of instant noodles that says, "Your father and I would like you to stop asking us for money." Either way, one rate fits all. FedEx One Rate. 2-day shipping, one flat rate. Starting at $14.50. Visit FedEx.com/OneRate for details. Exclusions apply. With FedEx One Rate, you can ship to your student for a simple, predictable flat rate. Send a box full of home-baked treats that say, "Your father and I miss you." Or send a box full of instant noodles that says, "Your father and I would like you to stop asking us for money." Either way, one rate fits all. FedEx One Rate. 2-day shipping, one flat rate. Starting at $14.50. Visit FedEx.com/OneRate for details. Exclusions apply.
You've got to watch your NFL team every Sunday, and Verizon's got you covered for all your team's out-of-market games every Sunday afternoon. Come on! From kickoff to sign-off, from first downs and touchdowns, to turnovers, and overturned plays.
After review, the pass was incomplete.
Nice! Let's go! This season, win every Sunday with Verizon. Get a great deal on NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV, and a new phone. Excludes digital-only games. Terms and embargoes apply.
Without good blocking, your team's not going anywhere. Cisco blocks cyber attacks for customers around the world, including the entire Fortune 100 and the NFL. Because when the game is on the line, and it's always on the line, the NFL relies on Cisco.
It ain't my dad's razor, Dad.
Hey, watch it.
It's from Gillette Labs. This green bar releases trapped hairs from my face.
Game changer.
While the Flex, this contours to it. So the 5 blades can get virtually every hair in one stroke. For the ultimate Gillette shaving experience.
The best a man can get
is Gillette Labs.
By the time this Patriots fan is finished drinking his Pepsi, you'll be 15 seconds closer to game time. Patriots watching. Better with Pepsi.
Join the conversation by calling into the TPX hotline at 855-PATS-500 or email the show at podcast@patriots.com. Now, live from our studios, here is Matt Smith.
And welcome back to the Patriots Pregame Social, fueled by Tunkin. It is the witching hour for a 1 o'clock game. That means the 11:30 time slot, where it's time for the Inactives. And let's go out to a rainy Gillette Stadium playing field where Tamara Brown joins us live. Tamara, who is in and who is out today against the Chargers, please?
Well, I'm happy to report that there are no surprise inactives for today against the Chargers. I will say one thing that stood out to me was Marte Mapu. For the second week in a row, he will be playing. Coming off his big performance last week versus the Bills, where he had a forced fumble, an interception, and 2 pass breakups. Can he build on that in today's game versus the Chargers? With that being said, Jabril Peppers is out today, so we expect to see a lot of Marte Mapu. And then for the offensive line, one of the biggest things I've noticed since watching the pregame warm-ups is Cole Strange getting some one-on-one work with offensive line coach Scott Peters. He's been out here working on his snap, working on his technique with Scott Peters. So that's been a huge sign today, seeing Cole Strange out here getting ready for hopefully the first time getting to see him in game action in nearly over a year.
Number 69 on your scorecard. We want to keep an eye on him, Cole Strange. I want to go back to something on the Peppers-Mapu situation, yes. Tamara.
Uh-huh.
Because it was Peppers who was out last week that led to Mapu playing, yes. And he played pretty well. Mike, I'll let you chime in on this as well. Can they not be on the field? Can Duggars, Mapu, and Peppers in a big nickel sort of a situation, can they not be on the field together?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I just threw it to Tamara. Tamara, have you seen Jabril Peppers out there? Was he, sometimes those guys get out there and do a little bit of early work, but just curious if you saw him at all working out earlier. I know you were in here with us, so maybe not.
Yeah, I wasn't able to see him out here because I was in the studio with you guys. But from what I've seen so far, I've just seen Kyle Duggar and Marte Mapu out here warming up. In regards to the safety room,
yep.
Of course.
It's an interesting, really kind of inside baseball question about it. But here's Mapu, who doesn't play all of training camp. You know, the Pepper situation arises, and Mapu's got to go wire to wire against Miami, and everybody goes, hey, wait, they nailed one. They got this one. 2 straight, as Tamara mentioned, healthy scratches. He plays last week. You know, it kind of looks a little bit, not knowing what's going on. Well, if Peppers is out, Mapu plays. What happens if Peppers is back? That's a kind of an interesting one to keep an eye on, it seems to me, Tamara.
Well, I think, Matt Smith, it all goes back to what Gerard Mayo keeps saying. He wants to see what he has. And I know we only have 2 games left. We talked about that with Cole Strange and Caden Wallace. But it's now or never to figure out what you have out of Marte Mapu. And so I think these last 2 games, I don't mind seeing more of Marte Mapu. That you already know what you have with Jabril Peppers and Kyle Duggar. So let's see what you have with Marte Mapu.
Okay, what I don't see is I don't see any big thermometer.
No.
I don't see any big umbrella.
No problem.
So what do you got for a weather forecast at 11:34, Tamara?
So I'm going to put my meteorologist hat on and say that when I arrived here at the stadium earlier this morning, I was carrying an umbrella. There was steady rain coming down. Now, as we're approaching kickoff, it's more of a mist, more of a spitting type of rain happening. And so I don't need my umbrella. I don't need my rain jacket. And compared to last week, I'd say this is pretty warm compared to 13 degrees in Buffalo.
Okay. It's too early, really. Gates are probably just opening right now at 11:34. I'll throw this out for everybody. What do we anticipate from the crowd today? Because I think, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some maybe newer Patriot fans out there today that got a holiday gift under the tree or, for Hanukkah or something like that. And maybe we have new people coming to the stadium today. Maybe that's a little wishful thinking on my part.
Hopefully. I mean, it's
so
great. Yeah, go with Mary.
I will say one thing. I know my key to the game was to be Grinch-like and no gift giving today versus the Chargers, but I do see in the very front row there is a fan that says this is their first Patriots game. They're here all the way from D.C. So Matt Smith, you were exactly right. Someone got a gift to come to this game against the Chargers.
So with that gift comes a responsibility. We need you to be loud. We need you to be intimidating. We need you to create an atmosphere out there today, right?
That's right.
Good stuff,
Absolutely.
Tamara.
Make this first Patriots game for this fan. I hope it's a fun one.
Yep, absolutely. Nice job, Tamara. Thank you very much. There's your Inactives. We do see on the Chargers side, the Gus is out, or the Gus bus is out. That means Dobbins, who's been put back in the active list, will likely go today, and he's their first string back. We should probably... Yeah. I mean, I don't know if he's full go, but we're going to see a lot of Dobbins today.
I think we will. Yeah, and I mean, he was, fresh off of IR, and, I think he was the plan this year. And out of the gate, like I said, I think he had over 130 yards rushing their first 2 games. He's a big part of what they want to do, I think, this year. And like Paul said, I think in a perfect world, they're going to stock up on some talent and get better at running back and add some more depth behind him. Maybe, continue to try to find that number 1 receiver on the outside for Justin Herbert. But I fully expect them to come, try to run the ball early and often, establish the game, just the end of year, try to win these games tough, ugly. I think Jim Harbaugh has a real good sense of how playoff games go when it's in January, and I think he'll use this, a little bit as a prep for his team because, let's face it, they're probably going to have to go on the road and probably play somewhere cold, whether it's going to Baltimore or Buffalo or Kansas City. So they're going to have to be ready. This won't be the last time the Chargers have to play in some weather.
If the standings hold, it's another Harbaugh Bowl, it looks like. With 2 weeks left, but that was, I think, what the matchup would be today. I think if you're
Strap your helmet on, Matt, for that one.
Where the media will be all a buzz about that. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light is the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. Our number, again, is 855-PATS-500. And as we do every week, let's have Pat from Agawam join us. Good morning, Pat. You're first on the Patriots Pregame Social, fueled by Duncan. Good morning, Pat. Good morning, Pat.
Patty.
Going once, going twice. I don't hear Pat.
Oh, he'll call back.
Pat, call back. As we await Pat to call back, let's try Larry in Denver. Larry, you're next on the Patriots Pregame Social. Hi, Larry. All right, what are the chances that any of this is operator error, either of the Mats? I don't think so, but you never know. We'll let him go. Before we go back to the phones, Mike, I wanted to follow up on something with you. We're talking about the wide receivers. Drake May, how tough he should be with the Bakers and the Polks of the world. Do they have something in Booty? Coming off of a career game last week against Buffalo, is he a guy that you feel comfortable going forward with that's a part of the solution for the 2025 Patriots offense?
I'll tell you, I feel comfortable bringing him back into training camp and letting him compete, and knowing that he has a little chemistry with Drake May. In a perfect world, there are maybe 2 wide receivers that join this roster this offseason that you immediately pencil in, atop the depth chart. I know plenty of people, let's just call it T. Higgins and, maybe a second-round pick, something like that, that could be put into the mix. So I love what Booty did last summer. I mean, I think that you got to give a guy a lot of credit when there's a log jam at wide receiver, and he was able to come in, and, I mean, it was tenuous. I mean, it wasn't like, he was just emerged and took the job. He did it with consistency. He did it with really solid hands. I think that I've said many times. That's the trait that always stood out to me of just what he's best at. So, look, we get into 3, 4. What is he? I don't think that he's going to be the long-term solution as the number 1 X receiver on the Patriots roster, but I do think that he potentially could be that 3rd, 4th guy on the depth chart that's going to get some rotational snaps, that's going to get in there, that has some confidence with, has some chemistry with Drake May that could potentially build into year 2. But I wouldn't promise anything to any of the receivers on this room this year. They're all going to have to come back next year, and hopefully they're going to have to compete with some guys who are going to raise the talent level.
Right. Our email address is podcast@patriots.com. This is from Kyle, who writes in, after hearing Adam Schefter's latest report, I'm feeling a little bummed out because it seems if they're trying to scapegoat him for all the problems on the team this year. I think getting rid of AVP, who by all accounts May really likes and credits to his development, would be a mistake. Didn't see the Schefter report, but I certainly think that Van Pelt being up in the air has been in the air for quite some time over the last month.
Yeah, and it's hard because of everything that I've talked about here, of the team not really building identity, not a lot of improvement. Like, the one thing you can say that you feel pretty good about is that your rookie quarterback has developed pretty well. And, the things that he needed to work on that all the scouts said coming out, we've seen improvement in those. I mean, I've just seen improvement in him, major jumps from where we saw him in the summer. So to kind of target Alex Van Pelt and be like, yeah, let's get rid of him, I get, and I understand why. I understand why people want the offense to suddenly be something magical, but I don't know. Of all the coaches this year, if you had to point out one that's done an okay job, I think Alex Van Pelt will be the one. I also enjoy listening to him. He's very upfront. There's no subterfuge with him. You ask him a question, you're going to get an answer. I think that, has maybe gotten him in trouble a little bit this year, but I really struggle if Alex Van Pelt is the one guy to walk the plank this year because of this season, when in reality he's the one positional coach. I mean, I'd say one positional coach because, tight ends, and there have been good positional play. But, I mean, the most important thing to this franchise right now is Drake May, and this guy came in, developed him. I mean, look what the mess with Caleb Williams right now. So now we're thinking, let's get rid of Alex Van Pelt. Whoever the next guy is, he's got to be better, right? I have trouble getting on board with that. I wouldn't mind seeing Alex Van Pelt back. I do think, maybe there are some changes among the offensive coaching staff that they need to consider, because it was kind of a hodgepodge group. It wasn't like, an offensive coordinator came in, brought all his guys. So I do think there are changes needed, but to me personally, Alex Van Pelt is down the list as far as things that need to immediately change after this season.
855-PATS-500. Back to the phone lines to try to make sure the phone lines are working. Pat, you're first from Agawam. Good morning, Pat. How are you today, sir?
Hey, can you hear me now?
There he is. Patty.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I hope you all had a great Christmas and holiday season so far.
Same to you,
sir. I want to touch on three. Thank you very much. It was awesome. No complaints. I want to just touch on three things and get your opinion on the last one. First thing is, Deuce, you said a couple things I couldn't agree more with. The first thing is this team's identity is they don't know how to win. They need to find a way how to win. Hopefully, next year that'll take place. They'll start learning how to win some games. And the second thing you said is, if you're a QB, you kind of have to be an a-hole, Not just like we've seen it with Brady, but, we've seen clips of Peyton Manning, there's a famous clip of him yelling at Jeff Saturday, worry about blocking, and I'll worry about calling the plays and doing my job, and then goes right back up to him after him and dabs him up. And Paulie, I think we saw that in 97 with Drew Bledsoe. If I remember, I think it was a 97 season where I think they were playing Jacksonville, where Vincent Brisby runs the wrong route. He gets up in his face and screaming at him, and I think on the next series he throws him a touchdown pass, and that's the kind of leader he needs to be going forward. The second thing I wanted to touch on is Marcus Jones. I'm a little bit worried because like you guys, I love him, but this is the second year in a row where he's ended his season on IR.
The third.
I hope that doesn't become a
the third on IR, but he's had injury problems all 3 years. Pat
came in with double shoulder surgeries.
And I hope that's not something that we have to address in the offseason, because we already have so much to address as it is. And the third thing is this game, I can't help but get visions of the 2009 playoff game against the Ravens where, the game was over 2 minutes into the game. And I wouldn't be surprised if, Paulie, I know you said their run attack isn't that good, but just following the trends, this run defense has been so abysmal. I wouldn't be surprised if Dobbins takes their first carry for 7 yards for a touchdown. I mean, that's how bad it's been. But I think I'm picking a 10-point game. I think the Chargers are going to win something along the lines of 31-21. But I just want to see this team like they did last week come out and just play with fire, play with a little heart, and if they win, I'll be surprised. I'm not one of these guys that wants to see them lose these next two games. I want to see them start winning games. But might be a little too late for that, but that might be a little wishful thinking this week. But I just think I think the Chargers are going to probably end up running all over us like every team has this year. That's all I got, guys.
Thanks, Pat, for the phone call. Very uplifting message there, and I'll let you,
He sounded too sober.
Do we got to worry about a Ravens repeat, Redux, 09 playoff game?
Yeah, I mean, I did actually think of it a little bit because I know that the Chargers haven't been great running the ball, but a team that wants to run the ball and they want to lean on you running the ball against a team that hasn't been able to stop the run is not a great combination. Mm-hmm. But I just would be surprised. If the Chargers put up 30 in this game, that would be
co-conspirators.
That'd be really, really depressing.
Yeah. From
a Patriots standpoint. Wow, that's a good crowd for that Fenway Bowl, huh?
Wow. Yeah.
I know UConn's in the game, but that's a pretty good crowd for
Nick in Idaho.
Nothing bowl
Writes, over the past couple of seasons, the Patriots have had some good games against the Chargers. Wasn't last year's Chargers game one of the worst games?
6-0.
Awful. Did that translate today, or is Harbaugh enough of a change to get rid of that chance today? So I guess if I'm reading Nick correctly here, is Harbaugh the difference in seeing Los Angeles posting a dominant performance?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it has the past success to me is irrelevant because you have a different coach.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's not the same. First of all, it's not even the same team. Like we talked about in the first hour, all the guys that are gone. You know, basically the guts of the offense have changed.
Kyle writes in. This is a topic that in some of our pre-show prep, Paul and I were working on. Our wide receiver room has such a lack of talent that we might need to target guys regardless of if they may be a diva wide receiver, like signing Stephon Diggs or trading for someone like George Pickens. These are not usually the players I hope the Patriots sign, but beggars cannot be choosers, right? Says Kyle.
So Diggs
is a little long on the tooth. So let's,
I'm not talking about Stephon Diggs today, but Stephon Diggs is a guy that you would not normally want to. Now, I'm excluding Mike from this. Stephon Diggs is a guy that you would not have wanted to see on the Patriots over, say, the last 5 years prior to this. Like, I can't help you. Like, you wonder why you have a hard time getting wide receivers? Because the ones that are good you don't like because they might have, like, an ego. I don't know what to say.
Wasn't there a lot of talk, though, before Buffalo when he was in Minnesota that Patriot fans were drooling over the opportunity? Please bring Stephon Diggs in. Is there any chance that they'll bring Stephon Diggs? Yeah. Belichick talked about him from Maryland and everything like that. Wasn't there some false hope potentially there?
I don't recall. Mike hates Stephon Diggs, but that's not even a shot at Mike. Yeah. Mike has always sort of gotten bad vibes from Diggs. But that aside, like, as productive as any receiver in the league for a stretch of 5 years. Like, if that's not a guy you want to – like, Pickens is not that productive, and he's that disruptive. Yeah. So I could sort of understand you saying, I'm going to go with the Mike Dussault. I'm going to be a little bit more cautious on Pickens. Yeah. He's good. Now, I would say Pittsburgh kind of fell apart when he left the lineup. Yeah. So maybe he's a little bit more impactful than people give him credit for. But I get that. He's a disruptive guy, and he doesn't have 1,500-yard seasons like Diggs did.
I guess maybe one of the overreaching question here, though, from Kyle is, do you have to be as picky and choosy? And if a guy is a diva, is there so little talent in that wide receiver room that you got to hold?
Can I just say I want a diva wide receiver?
Yeah.
Like, I want one of those.
Yeah, I get it.
Those are the difference makers.
I get it.
You know,
there's just like, for me, there's a level of diva that I can accept, whereas there's a level of high maintenance that this requires extra.
Got examples, please, sir?
George Pickens.
Okay.
A guy that
good, Mike.
The coach is going to have to put his arm around him and make sure he doesn't lose his mind because a play didn't go his way. At any given moment, he might fire the ball into another guy and get a 15-yard penalty. It's just like
he's volatile. He is volatile. Mike's right.
That's the stuff I don't like. Look, I love A.J. Brown. I would bite any bullet for A.J. Brown. I know he can be a little high maintenance too, but I think that's the level of player that is worth it.
It's good. Those are two good examples of what you're talking about.
You start getting down the ladder a little bit, and it's like, well, he's a 1B, and he's a pain in the ass, and we're going to have to pay him $30 million. It's like, that's a lot. That's a lot to ask. And I would be, you want to be calculating when you're building the team at this point. You want to, in a perfect world, you want to say, we're going to bring in the Stephon Diggs or, whoever, and our culture is established. Like, this guy's just got to get up. Amari Cooper's not that guy, but for Buffalo, they're doing what they do. And they brought in Amari Cooper, and I said, great. You're not our savior. You're going to be the guy who's going to make a couple big catches for us now because you're super talented, but We don't need you to be the man. We don't need you to remake our offense, redefine our offense. That's the move I'd like to make. I'd prefer. And I know it's hard. There's no guarantee that you can build a team that way. But in a perfect world, that's what it would be. Not these guys, and then they become, kind of the captain of the ship in some ways. And now, all right, great. Like, how does Stephon Diggs feel today? Like, it's not about Drake May. It's about how does the receiver, is he on today, or is he a little bit, pissy about something? That's the stuff I don't want to deal with.
855-PATS-500. Andre in New York is next on the Patriots pregame social, fueled by Duncan. Good morning, Andre.
Good morning, everybody. How you guys doing?
Fantastic.
Good, great.
Happy holidays.
Same.
Just sitting here watching your show. Love your show. Big Pats fan. I had a quick question about, since we're talking about receivers, what is your guys' take on Javon Baker? I seen him in the summer camps, and I seen his college highlights, and I think he looks like a great breakout wide receiver. I seen he had some stuff off the field with like a car accident or something that happened, and I seen he hasn't gotten any great playing time. So I just wanted to know.
He's got to learn how to be a professional.
It's a great question, Andre, and thank you for the phone call.
I think that's what this offseason is for him. He's got to either put in a ton of work and live around the stadium and be totally locked in and totally understand the playbook and be with Drake May every other weekend, thrown with him, and he comes into camp and all this, nonsense off the field that always kind of seems to be lurking in the periphery. He's got to get rid of that stuff, and if he doesn't, he'll be cut next year. I mean, that's
I would say that I'm just talking about as a Patriot. I'm not talking about the college tape. In the summer, I at least saw potential for Jalen Polk. I saw him every single day catching admittedly, I sort of bickered with Mike because we're like an old married couple sometimes, and we bicker. I saw a lot of shallow crosses for 3 yards, but he caught 1 million passes in camp. I did not see any of that from Javon Baker. I didn't see really any. I saw a couple of flash plays here or there, but I didn't see any sustained, consistent production in training camp. I didn't think he had a very good camp. I thought he got worse as the camp went on. I thought he had a terrible preseason. Dropped a bomb from Drake May in the Philly game, I want to say.
Yep.
Just has done nothing. As a Patriot, I've seen no flashes of brilliance at all. Jalen Polk, I saw flashes of ability where he could be like that complementary piece to a good offense. I've seen nothing from Baker. Compound that with everything that Mike said off the field, I think you're looking at a sort of a wasted pick. I know that sounds brutal after a year, but there's a reason why a lot of teams didn't have them on their draft board. He was off their boards.
And my level of optimism that he would do the things that I said he needed to do, which is learn how to become a professional this offseason and totally dedicate himself to his craft.
It's week 17.
I mean, I don't have a lot of optimism that he's going to do that. I assume he's going to get to training camp next year, and then, if it goes the way it should, he should be in a life and death fight with Kayshon Boutte
and be beaten out by a better player.
And he has the rare chance, I think, to be a second-year draft pick that gets cut.
Craig from Central Massachusetts writes in, good morning pregame crew. It looks like Rappaport is reporting that Gerard is expected to be back unless some type of calamity happens. Have we reached a point where calamity has become the norm?
I don't think so. Like, this is like the fourth week in a row we've gotten these reports of like he's okay unless it totally falls apart.
From the same reporter, that's basically the same wording. Either tell me that he is definitively back, or tell me that they're still evaluating.
Right.
Enough of this. Like, he's going to be back unless ...
Yeah.
This is the third week in a row we're hearing this.
So to continue with Craig from Central Mass, last season was one. I assume he means calamity, and things look worse this year. But by all means, let's burn some cash on a soft team and leave them thinking, quote, you said it, I didn't. We need a change. Fire the coordinator. In parentheses, he puts S, coordinators. Who wants to work for an HC that's going into 2025 on the hot seat? Blow out the hodgepodge staff of Bill holdovers and retread castoffs. Don't delay the inevitable. Happy New Year. And on a happy note, Matt, you've really grown into the host's chair. Okay, thanks, Craig. Appreciate that.
Yeah, that caught on my chin wag on the other station. That was another vote of confidence, and I'm like, but wasn't it kind of like the same vote of confidence? And I'm not criticizing Ian Rappaport because he's reporting what he's being told.
Yeah, right. And they're still losing these games. I mean, they haven't looked like abject disasters, I guess. But
I don't know what a calamity is if 3-12 isn't a calamity.
Right.
So I don't know.
Right. Back to the phone lines. 855-PATS-500. Nick Baby Love the name, is next on the Patriots pregame social, fueled by Duncan. Good morning, Nick.
How you doing, gentlemen?
Hey, Nick.
Nick, good to hear from you.
Big show.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, well, I'm dealing with my health. I think if your name's Matt, the host, just a shout out to Patriots Nation. I love everybody, and the show's been excellent. Let me focus on, one thing, and I'll try to call in more often. Just like I said, I'm dealing with my health. Paul will explain when I get off, the call. But I want to say about leadership. Are you there, gentlemen?
Yes, sir. We're listening, Nick.
Floor's yours.
D-Train. God bless you, Mr. Holy Cross, and of course, Paul. You guys know me very well. So the leadership thing is very important because to me, somebody who's an older guy that has not missed one game since Billy Sullivan bought the franchise in 1960 for $25,000. I just think losing is unacceptable, and I am very upset about that. And I just think the leadership is the heart and soul of the whole thing. And I think I don't want to get into the draft, but I think I know Deion Sanders, Paul, and I used to hang out with his dad, Pops, rest in peace. But Travis Hunter is a leader. He's once in a generation, and I pray that they can get somebody like that to just add to the team. Because can you imagine Brady or Belichick? Do you think all this nonsense and noise would be happening if they weren't there? So that's basically it. Hopefully I can hear you talk about that. God bless you all, and happy holiday season.
Nick,
Nick, be well.
Good phone call, and be well, Nick. Thank you for the phone call and all the
Travis
support.
Hunter, I think everybody's intrigued by. There's a lot of talent there. Yep. I don't know if that's the no-brainer pick for the Patriots that a lot of fans think, but it's certainly a very talented guy.
Yeah. Well, we can update. It's not much of an update. Right now, they're slated in the 2 slot. Yeah. They're in the 2 hole with the Giants, I think, firmly having a chokehold on the number 1 pick. You'd think the Giants would be looking at quarterback. And it's not a great quarterback draft. I've heard other draftniks say it's not a great overall draft. But I also heard a wise one say this morning, there are NFL players in the draft. It's your job to find them.
Yeah.
Yep. And how they do against the Chargers today, how they do against a Buffalo team that's got a seed already wrapped up and wants to rest people beforehand, and they win a game against not necessarily the varsity unit of the Buffalo Bills. That would have an impact on their draft situation. That might not be the worst thing in the world, because maybe at 5, 6, 7, you feel a lot better about taking the kid from Texas, the other offensive lineman. That might be a better fit than a 2.
Next week's game, not to get ahead of ourselves, but it terrifies me. And I mean, I'm not a tank guy, but like a meaningless win over a backup Bills team that drops you. And I, did some playing around with, all right, if this team's winning, these teams win, and the Patriots go 1-1 over these last 2, you could go down to like 10. I mean, so we'll get to next week when we get to it, but that game really, really scares me because at this point, there's nothing really to be taken from a victory, and the difference between 2 and 10 is the difference of Travis Hunter. You want a shot at Travis Hunter, you win that game, he go bye-bye.
Au contraire, I just want to make sure we're consistent. I've heard throughout the hour or so that we've been on this morning that winning is important.
Except when you get to the backups in Week 18.
Well,
that's what I'm like, nope.
They need a win.
You could get something out of today.
So next week means nothing.
No.
It doesn't help the program.
I mean,
does it hurt the program or help the program?
It's irrelevant to the program, I would say. If you're not playing an NFL game next week, it's like winning a preseason game.
You win you beat their backups.
It doesn't do you any good to win a preseason game, and that's what it's. I mean, I don't know. Can I wait and see how the game unfolds before I declare that it's the most? No, next week.
Okay.
Before I declare it meaningful, like if I see it, I might have a whole different. I said, you know what? These teams they showed up to play. Patriots did some nice things today. That's a good win.
Right. And let's not jump ahead of ourselves. I think we all would like to see a competitive, representative game out of the Patriots today against a team who, with a win, clinches a playoff spot.
Yeah, playoff in the sights.
So, everything's on the table.
So one
other
other thing that I did see over the weekend that worries me is, we've talked a lot about Will Campbell potentially being a guard. I saw a lot of reports that Kelvin Banks is more suited to guard now too.
Yeah.
Yep. Are there any tackles in this draft?
Yeah, the Connerly kid from Oregon, who I think is down a little bit. He's one of
He's the one that got hurt.
He has.
Or is that the
Ohio
State guy?
I'm not sure.
One of them had a knee injury, was out. But
no, I like just edge. Watch the edge. Look, there's a bunch of edge
Ohio
guys.
State's got 2 good edge guys.
Well, there's just the
Abdul
first round.
Carter for Penn State.
The first round's got edge players, and look, I mean, and like. you look at the offense, tackles and wide receivers, tackles, wide receivers. Like, I think you could kind of get by everywhere else on the offensive roster next year. Not saying you're not trying to upgrade, not saying you're going to take some flyers on guys, but tackles, wide receivers, and then look at the offense, like of the defense. You got to add to the front seven. You got to add some insurance behind Juwan Bentley. You need a dynamic kind of Willie McGinnis type, every down presence who can stop the run, who can get after the passer. They don't have that piece, and I don't think enough people talk about, everyone's just so focused on getting a receiver and a tackle that, you just can't let the defense wither on the vine. They drafted Marcellus Dial, only defensive player they did last year. There's going to have to be some money invested on the defense, and I'd really look at free agency as a place where they can make some noise at CB2, they can make some noise at off-the-ball linebacker, edge not so much, but, a guy like Aleem McNeil from Detroit who's going to hit free agency, who's been a really consistent player and is in his 20s, like, you don't know what you're going to get with Barmore next year. So you have Godshaw for what he is, but you need a consistent interior defensive presence. You need an edge presence, and you need some off of the ball. So front seven, baby. Don't ignore it this year.
Mike Dussault is talking about players. Yvonne from Toronto wants to know about players. Hi, everybody. You guys already mentioned this. Most players will be back next year. I think Paul threw out the number 43 already under contract. And that's not good, says she. Yeah. We need better players, ! Which player under contract next year can be cut, take a financial loss, and be upgraded? That's Yvonne from Toronto.
All of them.
Yeah.
And I'm not being snarky. I mean, you can cut anybody you want.
Yeah.
You just got to replace them with better players.
Yeah.
Aleem McNeil, by the way, re-signed.
Oh, he did?
With Detroit.
Dang it.
Yeah. Like a month ago.
Did he? I missed
I thought that when you said it, I punched it in the old Google machine just to make sure.
Thank you for clarifying.
Paul, give me I'm going to put you on the spot.
Who do you have that you can't upgrade?
No, and that's, I think,
they're 3-12 for a reason, and everybody tells me they don't have any talent in the roster. Like, we can't get rid of any of the coaches because it's all the talent's fault. But now we can't cut anybody and upgrade. I think you can upgrade all of these guys.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the debate of the offseason is, a guy like, look, Michael Onwenu is going to probably be your right guard next year. You can't, you're not going to upgrade him. You maybe just going to have to figure it out with Layden Robinson at left guard. They seem to like him, and you got to prioritize what the guys are. But it's like Hunter Henry, like he's really good. You have so many bigger holes. Do you try to upgrade Hunter Henry?
So Kendrick Bourne signed a 3-year deal to stay. You can't upgrade him?
Oh, yeah.
Jabril Peppers signed a deal.
I'm thinking more on defense with both Duggar and Peppers.
Jelani Tavai signed a deal. You can upgrade him.
Very similar players, those two.
And I know what Paul will say to this, but like when after next year, that's when you get out all the contracts you signed last year. If you're really concerned about eating dead money and all the things that come with those, new contracts, but for the most part, you're kind of stuck with all those contracts.
I wouldn't advocate, take the 10 guys that they re-signed, cut them all. No, that doesn't make any sense either. That's just cutting people for the sake of cutting them. But you can get out of those contracts. Onwenu is probably the only pricey contract that you'd probably pay. That would hurt.
Yeah.
To get rid of that one. But like as Mike said, you're probably not upgrading him.
Right.
Because you got to upgrade the other 4 spots.
Right.
And you said Duggar and Onwenu too. I'd look at them next year and be like, you guys got to come back and play good.
Duggar and Peppers.
Yeah. No, Duggar and Onwenu.
I know Duggar for sure.
So Jonathan Jones is like, he's been dealing with a lot, but Duggar evidently he stinks now. He's not dealing with anything. Like, if you're on the field, you got to play. I agree with Mike. Duggar hasn't played well. I know he's not healthy. I know he hasn't been physically right. I say the same thing about Jonathan Jones. I know he's not physically healthy. He hasn't played well. But I think that those two guys get looked at differently because one of them signed a sort of modest contract to stay, and Duggar signed a big contract, which put him at the high end of the safety scale. But it's still like relatively nothing in the scheme of contracts in the league. He just makes a lot for a safety. He hasn't played well.
No,
I agree with Mike.
No. 855-PATS-500. Ron from New York is next on the Patriots Pregame Social. Good afternoon, Ron. You're next on the Patriots Pregame Social, fueled by Duncan.
Good afternoon, guys. Thanks for taking the call.
You're welcome.
My call ultimately is to just question the leadership of this franchise. Maybe you've talked about it already. I tuned in a little bit late, but like the Keon White comments that came out this week, and it's been, I follow, Mike and Lazar and Kyles and Reese. The comments throughout the season, these guys have been letting little things slip here and there. The coaches have had to walk things back and apologize on Monday morning shows. I just question the leadership. We're loaded to make a difference going into next season. But do we have the right guys in place to make those picks, to spend that money, to develop the players we already have to truly make a difference for this franchise? My fear is we're becoming the Dallas Cowboys or the LA Raiders. And the point that I would say that to back that up is those franchises for years have been run, or in the Raiders' case, were run by the front office, the owners. And in what other walk of life, when you have a franchise, a productive business, a storied franchise like the Patriots, would you say we need a complete rebuild, but then you hire a guy to run that has never done the job and clearly is learning on the job? You always go with the strongest leaders you can find, and then, you move forward with the pieces that they clearly have going into this next offseason. We don't have that leadership. We got guys nobody else wanted. They were unemployed for a reason. Some have done well, some have struggled. I mean, on the defensive end, Covington, he's been left a lot to be desired. AVP's had his moments. Mayo's leadership has been questionable all season long, and it's just not acceptable when you're trying to turn a franchise around to go from 3-12 to something respectable, that you have a guy that's just learning. And there's nothing against Mayo. He's a terrific player, and by all accounts, he's a leader of men in the business world, maybe more so than in the football room. But I just don't hear enough about questioning this leadership. And are we being run by the ownership? Is that why we have a guy that maybe is brand new and learning on the job, because it's the owner that's instructing him on how to move forward? I just want to get your guys' take on that, and thank you for taking the call.
Yeah.
Good questions, Ron. Thank you for the call.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really hard question. I mean, I don't think we put enough attention on the fact that Mayo had never really coached a football team before. And you just put him in as kind of the CEO of the coaching staff, and that he would put all these things together. But I think we've seen some real growing pains with him, and I think a lot of the points the caller made, it's hard to disagree that they haven't been error repeaters at times, that they haven't looked like game management has been an issue of getting on the same page and knowing how we want to play these things. And I'm still shook from this last draft class. I think this last draft class was hugely important. And yes, Drake May, the layup at 3 overall has worked out pretty good. But I think I just wonder if the draft problems that existed the last 5 years still kind of existed this year. So they've got to figure out a way to get that right, because if they keep missing on these draft picks, it's going to be a long road back to any kind of competitive football.
Yeah, well, they won't have an opportunity to miss on many more if that's the case.
Yeah, and I don't think, we're talking about, Dallas. That the Jones family and Al Davis were heavily involved in personnel, and they were really good at what they did. I think that those get, thrown around like they're punchlines all the time. Everybody tells me Dallas is one of the most talented teams in the league every year, but they don't have the coaching. That's why Mike McCarthy's on the hot seat. Yeah. So that's not the problem. Acquiring talent is not the problem, and it certainly wasn't the problem for the Raiders when Al Davis was alive. Now, they don't do it that way anymore. Al Davis obviously is long gone, and Mark Davis does not pick the players. They're doing it traditionally. They hire a GM, and they've been failing. So, this whole, notion of, we don't want to be one of those organizations. Yeah, you don't want to be successful like that. I mean, the Raiders and the Cowboys, they had a lot of success. They haven't had it lately, but it's not because of the reasons you think.
Right. Dallas has got a much bigger, stronger talent pool that they've had. I agree with you 100%, Paul. And I think I mentioned this to you during the week. Was looking through a long read by, I think, Bill Barnwell, and he was going over some of the Raiders drafts. And he
miserable.
Reggie McKenzie, Mike Mayock, Dave Ziegler, all three of them. And there's one guy really to show out of all three of those regimes, and that's the kid Crosby, who's a terrific player, but there isn't a lot after that. And so we look at New England and see the draft woes of the last few years and go, oh, boy, they haven't really had a lot of success drafting. The Patriots aren't the only one. If you take a look at some of these teams out there, it's why it's an inexact science. It's hard to do.
It is. I mean, just a little throwback. You guys know I've been working on a project for the 04 season. It's just, when you reflect back, and it's and look, I know Brady was a shot in the dark in 2000 that you got a 6-round pack, but look at how they stacked those drafts. I mean, you get a Hall of Famer in Richard Seymour, you get a 10-year plus left tackle in Matt Light. The next year, you get Deion Branch, who had something like 22 catches in 2 Super Bowls, and Was he a number one? I don't know, but he sure delivered when the time was on. David Givens, another guy who was productive. Ty Warren. I mean, you look at the draft classes, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2000, that little chunk. Like
2004 was Watson and Wilfork.
Each year, they're at least stacking one or two players who are going to be long-term, solid contributors at positions of real need. And that's as much part of that sustained excellence that they had as I don't want to say as much as anything, but that played a part in it. You're getting guys every year at important positions on rookie contracts, and now you're not that anymore. Now you're chasing it in free agency. You're trying to somehow, they got to get back onto that track.
And just as big, when you have a really good team and you're sustaining success the way that those teams were, now you're drafting guys, in the middle to late rounds like Jarvis Green and Dan Copen, and they become important players because you're good. Yeah. You get a center in the 5th round who just sort of steps in and plays, but you stink. It's not really the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But Dan Copen is a really valuable player as a 5th round pick in the middle of a dynasty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's they got a lot of good players like that as well. Not just the hits at the top.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he was a hit at the top.
Asante Samuel.
Wilfork, right? You lose Ted Washington, and now you've got another young nose tackle that, was so critical to that defense and, then carried them all the way through till those lean years until they got back to the championship in 2014.
Bridgestone is the official tire of the New England Patriots, and they're proud to partner with Sullivan Tire, New England's headquarters for quality Bridgestone tires. Visit sullivantire.com to find a location near you. Back to the phones, 855-PATS-500, the number. Kendall from North Carolina is next on the Patriots pregame show, fueled by Duncan. Good afternoon, Kendall. You're next.
Good morning. Good evening. Good. How you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
All right. My question for all of you. I guess we could start with Paul, mainly for Paul. Pop Douglas. Do y'all think I got two questions. Pop Douglas. You think he's in the? Think he is like a number 3 receiver, or maybe even like a 4? I don't think he's a 2, but I think he's probably a 3. Really for us. And my second question is if we keep that number 2 spot, if y'all had to pick today. Now I know free agency and all the other stuff leading up to the draft is going to weigh into it, but if you had to pick today with the number 2 pick, who would y'all take? And I'll take it off. Appreciate it. Y'all do a good job.
Good questions, Kendall. Thank you very much. Who wants to tackle Pop first?
I'd say he's kind of a 4. I mean, I think he's a solid,
very
little
fair,
complementary slot player on passing downs, and he's got some quickness to him. But he can't be the guy drive in, drive out, driving the train, high volume, a lot of catch. I mean, he just doesn't have the frame to hold up to that stuff. So, I mean, that just goes back to, I think me and Paul are lockstep that you need 2 receivers atop the depth chart this offseason. And then we can talk about Booty's all right, Booty is your number 3 and rotates in, and Pop Douglas is your 4. Like that's
I probably
Douglas,
agree.
Paul or Ladd McConkey?
Yeah. Oh, Ladd McConkey is much more talented. Right. But Pop Douglas, I think, he's a good player if you have a good offense.
Right.
And I think he'd look a lot better. I think you could use him in individual spots, and he could give you some value. And I always bring up the different guys, Mike, that are sort of not gadget guys, but guys that oh yeah, we have him too, like Tavon Austin, or Tutu Atwell with the Rams right now. I think that he can be a valuable player if you had a good team. I think you're asking him to do too much, and I don't want to get caught up in the numbers like. He's a 1, a 2, a 3, whatever. Yeah. I know that drives you crazy too.
That's I jumped into it.
But I do think that you need guys that are at the top of the pecking order. Like to your point, in 04, like that, and that first of all was a much different era. They ran the ball.
Right.
They had a 1,600-yard rusher in that on the 04 team, but Troy Brown was the number 1 guy.
Right.
Yeah. And everybody fell in place because Troy Brown was the guy that Brady leaned on the most. 100 catches, I think, in 01 or whatever it was. That was the guy. Not a traditional number 1 receiver, but they were able to get by because you have Brady.
So I'll give you another one in that era. Jarvis Green. Mike already mentioned him a second ago. Yeah. On a team with Richard Seymour, Ty Warren, Vince Wilfork. Jarvis Green's a rotational player. The problem today is you're playing guys like Jarvis Green. And Jarvis Green is a good player, so don't get me wrong.
Dietrich Wise is probably a better player than Jarvis Green. Jarvis Green made way more plays than Dietrich Wise.
Yeah. Right. But my point is, Green was a rotational player.
Right.
There's too many guys on this team who should be rotational players, but because the roster is the way it is, are playing way too many snaps.
Yeah, let me jump in on that because tie it all together. Richard Seymour gets traded in 2009. Jarvis Green suddenly becomes a starter at right defensive end. We talked about what happened in the opening of that Baltimore game in the 2009 playoff. They ran right by Jarvis Green, who, similar to Dietrich Wise, was kind of that rush guy that would come in. He's not the base defensive end in your 3-4 defense. And now, and it's similar to what's, happened here a little bit, that you're asking guys to do a little bit more than maybe they should be doing. And, to Paul's point about Pop Douglas, you start adding some other talent. You get that Seymour back in the mix. All of a sudden, Jarvis Green has elevated his game, and he's doing great in a limited role when he's not being asked to be the guy. It could be the same thing for Pop Douglas.
Right. We didn't answer the gentleman's question about who would you take it to?
Probably Travis Hunter, but I have no idea.
Yeah, probably Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. Right now, I got a little bit of a crush on him.
I take the edge guy
just because I think he's, he's raw. He's going to need some time. But
a lot of people think he's the same kind of player that you're talking about. Yeah. Situational guy.
Okay. Yeah. Kendall in Vermont is up next on the Patriots pregame social, fueled by Duncan. Good afternoon, Kendall.
It's 2 Kendalls in a row.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
How you doing?
Double Kendall.
Question or a few questions. I have a question about Keon White's situation. So, is he re-signing or leaving? He's clearly disgruntled here. Recently spotted rocking the Bill Belichick NFL Films hoodie with the Swiss sleeves. It's weird. We cut players in our offseason, primarily the quarterback room, to essentially out with the old, in with the new. Did we miss players? Is that something to look into again? And also, I don't even think Keon White's that good. He's complaining about things changing. Improving in the run game for himself. From what I've seen, he's non-existent in the run defense. He shows a few flashes in pass rushing, and when our defense tasks him with containing, his numbers are shot. What kind of role is best for him, personally?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would disagree with you. I think they brought all of the previous regime back. I mean, they got rid of the quarterback, but everybody else came back. I mean, we just went over a lot of them. The re-signings of the players that who did they allow to leave? Mac Wilson?
Yeah.
I mean, Mac Jones.
Pretty much. That's what I said. The other than the quarterback, which was obvious reasons you drafted a quarterback with the 3rd overall pick. Right. Obviously, you were gonna. Yeah. That wasn't because out with the old. That was get better.
Right. Yeah.
Like everybody else re-signed.
Right.
Yeah.
I think they did way too much of that, to be honest with you.
You're watching.
And Keon White's under contract for 2 more years.
Yeah.
Pre-game warm-ups are going on. Patriots in their snappy home blues. We got a little uniform vote on what we look like. Is it dirty grays or is it the whites?
It's the dirty grays.
Dirty grays.
Okay.
Dirty grays.
All right. That means that the Chargers will go with the whites maybe and the light blue or the yellow. What do you think we got today out of the Chargers? Seen anything yet?
No, I haven't seen anything yet. I know they're not wearing the powder blues.
I will say that those pants don't look as dirty with the blue.
They don't.
No.
It looks like
with
a mismatch with the whites.
With white, they look dirty.
Yes.
With the blue, it just looks like it doesn't match.
No, it's interesting to me though. I mean, I think they've worn these great bottoms with the blue tops more than they've worn.
Yeah, we haven't worn the blue pants in a long time.
All year, so maybe them be getting phased out, perhaps.
All right, Matt. Why don't we hit the over/under, please, sir?
It's time for this week's edition of Over-Unders.
The pencil is out. Paul's ferociously writing down. Paul, why don't we go over the stats?
Let's see here. I went 4-2 last week. Mike went 3-3. No Sox 1-5. Season standings, I am 59-31, and Mike and No Sox 50-40.
I think I had to text my responses back to Matt Morrell, and I think he got them all wrong. I think that's probably the reason why. That's the reason for my 1-5.
Sure about that? You sure about that?
I'm sticking to it. How about that? Out of the chute, we start with Drake May passing yards at 219.5. 219.5, Paul.
I will take the over on that.
Yeah, I'm going to go over just because he's not even wearing sleeves today. So he looks ready. Look at him right there. He looks ready to fire the ball more than 219.5 yards.
3 for 3 on the over for Drake May. And then we go to the other quarterback. That's Justin Herbert passing yards, 232.5 for Justin Herbert. Mike?
Yeah, I wonder if he's going to have to throw this much. If the Chargers get that run game going. I don't think he really will have to. I'm going to say they do get the run game going. Herbert just has to be efficient and has a low passing average. So I'm going to say under on that for Herbert.
I'm going to say under also. And as just a quick aside, we see Drake May taking snaps from Cole Strange.
I was going to bring that up. Good job, Paul. And we're 3 for 3 on the Justin Herbert under number. By the way, just a little nerdy point here. Kind of like the handheld camera that we got going here for the quarterback and center exchange warm-ups. Very nice job.
Beautiful.
Next up, Drake May rushing yards at 26.5. Paul.
I'm going to take the under on that. Just a hunch.
I'm going to take the over just to try to play off of Paul's hunch. See if I can maybe make up some ground.
I'm going to follow Mr. Dussault and go over on that. He did that in one run a couple weeks ago. Total punts, 8.5. Who was wishing for a shootout?
That is many punts. I was wishing for a shootout, but I don't think I'm going to get it.
What's realistic? Doesn't look like there's rain right now.
High 20s to low 20s, I feel like, is realistic. I'm going to go under on that one if it's my turn.
It is your turn, and you're going to go under. I will follow you on the under.
I think it's just a lot of running, not a lot of, long possessions.
All right. I'll take the under also.
3 for 3 on the total punts. J.K. Dobbins, I'll get it right one of these times. He's the primary back for the Chargers. The over-under's at 55.5. Is that for the first half?
I'm gonna hammer the over.
Yeah?
I'm gonna hammer the over on that one.
What worries you? He's not ready to
played.
Okay.
The Gus bus is out though.
Yeah.
So
I guess you guys are right.
I would hammer the over.
All right.
Hammer the over.
All right. You guys are hammering me.
Hammer it.
Yeah, that wasn't hammering you.
That
was not hammering you. And last, but not least, is a total score of 42 and a hay. 42 and a hay on this one. Mike's looking for a shootout or wanting a shootout. Do you get what you want?
Yeah, that seems a little tiny bit low to me. I'm going to go over. I'm going to go over on that one. Being optimistic here.
I am taking the under. I don't think these are the most high-powered teams.
I'll go with Paul on that. I will go under as well. Back to the phone lines at 855-PATS-500. Let's go to Deshaun in Virginia. You are next on the Patriots Pregame Social, fueled by Duncan. Good afternoon, Deshaun.
Good afternoon, guys. How you guys doing?
Fantastic. Yourself?
I'm doing fine.
Good. I wanted to piggyback off the caller before named Ron. Like I said, he's basically spot on because remember the time I was talking about that I think reason why there's a lot more bad teams than I've ever seen before, whatever. See, but I wanted to brush up on that. See, what I see from a lot of teams right now, like I say, a lot of teams be able to draft well. When you talk about the Cowboys and Raiders or whatever, a lot of these teams have had talent or whatever, but the coaching and on up from the head people that call the shot on to the coach, on to the quarterback has been the problem for a lot of these teams. The foundation has been nice, but from the top on has not been great. But now when I look at the Patriots situation, I look at it as us being in a double whammy situation because not only the coaches are going to be bad, but I'm worried about who's going to be shot for the grocery as well, and they're going to do a good job at it. So that's the biggest problem what I see with with us right now. Versus other teams. Other teams have been able to draft well, like Tampa, for example. I mean, Tampa's always been a team that I've been looking at for years. They have great talent, but they've always had a guy that 30 for 30, so 30 interceptions, 30 touchdowns, and the head-on has been great. But they've been able to draft well. But us, I see two problems. Second half down the stretch.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Deshaun.
I mean, I share the same concerns as Deshaun, and they have, everyone will say they got some money to spend this year. They're going to, make some additions in free agency. They should be very active. That they have 10 draft picks, one of which will hopefully be in the top 10. But how can I have confidence right now that they're going to nail it?
Exactly.
It's hard to say. You're going to just have to wait and see and cross your fingers that they do it.
I don't know why. You just said something there that perked me up a little bit. And I get what you're saying. How do you have confidence that they're going to nail it? After one whack, do you not have confidence? I mean, the street's littered with teams that have, quote-unquote, blown drafts, okay? From very respected organizations, evaluators, etc. Does one draft make or break a player evaluation room? And I think that, as I hear people talk about, well, it's not fair, Gerard's only had 1 year. isn't the same true with the personnel department?
Yeah, not to me.
Well,
They've
no,
been around.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
a lot of
These guys have been here for 5 years of bad drafts.
Right. I mean, that's, and like, I think, on a certain level, I don't know what level, but you're right, that, Elliott won't be in
calling the
charge
shots
of the
there,
draft.
Paul?
Yes.
These are the guys that are identifying the players.
Right.
These are the guys that are putting their big you-know-whats on the table and asking, if you want to draft fast players, you got to draft fast players. If you want tough guys, like these are the guys that are, we're getting to hear from after drafts. These are the guys that are evaluating the talent in the draft. Like, I'm sorry, like they haven't been good enough.
And it's jarring how bad that this rookie class has been. I mean, other than Drake, I mean, you feel great about Drake, but after that, I mean, I wouldn't in a million years have thought. I don't remember what N'Keal Harry caught his first year. I'm guessing it's more than 12 passes. I'm guessing he touched the ball, but
it's a good question.
In any world, I never saw that this kind of production from these guys. Layden Robinson, maybe you have a little
There's
something
a maybe
there
on him.
And like I said, at a certain point, you might just have to pencil him in at left guard next year, and hope he continues to develop. But I'm a little shook. It's again, and it's a me problem because it's how many have. Go ahead, you're laughing. 12 exactly.
12 for 105.
Poetry.
And 2 touchdowns.
Right? Oh, my God. It's
just
exactly
like Polk.
Exactly the same.
Paul, can you help me out there, if you would, on the lower third there, the 15 Hall of Fame finalists?
Yes. So
did the kicker make it?
The kicker made it. No
What
Rodney.
about Hot Rod?
No Hot Rod. No
Okay.
Hot
No
Rod.
Harrison, no Will Fork.
Okay.
I don't know if they were even. They already made it through the past.
They were to the next level. Will Fork fell off.
So Vinatieri is a finalist.
Vinatieri is a finalist
in his first
and then guys with sort of peripheral, touching of the Patriots.
Fred Taylor.
No. Torrey Holt.
Not a Hall of Famer.
Reggie
not a Hall
Wayne.
of Famer. Yes, a Hall of Famer. Okay, John in Los Angeles is next on the Patriots pregame social, fueled by Duncan. Good afternoon, John, or good morning in your case, because you're in Los Angeles.
No, I'm not, though. I'm in New York. I just started a long time ago, John in L.A., and I moved. But
very good.
Thank you for... So, I first wanted to say I agree with everything you guys have been talking about in terms of how frustrating it is with the drafting. But I also have to say I'm so freaking psyched about Drake May, and I love watching him play and develop. So I feel like I just want to chime in with a positive there. I mean, I know you all agree, but I just think he's a great kid. I love watching him play football. I did have one comment about one of his receivers. I love the attitude and the energy from Kendrick Bourne, but I don't understand. Is he just not a hard worker? Are there rumblings of that? Because he's always talking about he's got to buckle down and he didn't run the right route. And yeah.
I kind of think that.
I mean, maybe we're parsing words here. I think he's a very hard worker. I think he works his tail off. I was actually, Peter King voice here. Well, was it an off-season workout with him at one point in time? He's a very hard-working kid. I think where the problem is maybe he's not the most buttoned-up kid, and maybe it's attention to details and a lack of focus potentially situationally that gets in the way with him.
Yeah, brain farts, and that's I think popped up with some of the critical moments. Yeah, that's I think
Thanks,
that's
John. Thank you, John.
Having him to, it's just. It's hard because these guys project good energy, but it starts to get annoying when they lose, and you're like, stop being so happy all the time.
No, it's the energy. It's great. Yeah. Where's the production's got to follow the energy.
And I think it affects the way people report about these guys because he's great, and I really enjoy talking to Kendrick Bourne. I don't pretend to have
such a personable.
Yeah,
kid.
I don't pretend to have a personal one-on-one relationship with him, but in my dealings with him, he's terrific to talk to. He's a lot of fun. Yeah, that's great.
How many catches did you have this week?
He's the poster child for what Mike's talking about. I know it was 3rd and 10, and I broke that off at 8 yards. That's my bad.
Yep.
Or
Too many of those.
I know that I was supposed to run this route, but I ended up in the same spot where the ball was, and I drew coverage. That's my bad. He's the poster child for that.
Right.
But no one ever criticizes him because he's a great guy.
Right. And there's
great energy.
I'm not suggesting that this is going to be the case with this player. I'm just saying this has been a topic that we talked about earlier in the show. Okay. The administration and whoever's a part of the administration are going to have decisions to make in the upcoming months. And a case could be made from a blanket statement. Well, we went 3-14 with this guy. How much worse can it be if he's not on the team?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean...
Well, that was kind of my point about, who do you have that you can't upgrade?
Right, and that's the point to the 43 guys is that, you have to bring people in to make these guys compete. And, maybe it is like a T. Higgins comes in, and there's now an alpha dog, and it's more than just having a number one. It's about reestablishing the room. And, Drake's throwing it to T. Higgins over and over and over.
Well, that room needs an
you see
enema.
them, right.
Oh, yeah.
Very good. But, now it's like everybody else, there's no more conversation about, get on their level.
Yep.
That's what has to happen.
Very fair. A little Sunday six-pack time, please, Matt.
This is the Sunday six-pack, so kick back and listen to my position. I'm itching to get the picks back. You better bring a big stack. Get it mixed, Jack. I came to win it, yeah, this is the Sunday six-pack.
Paul, Pencil Paul, it looks like there was a unbelievable performance last week to vault someone into contention.
There was. There was also.
Who might that have been, Paul?
That was you.
Oh,
No
okay.
Sox. No Sox went 5-1 to pull into a tie with me. I went 4-2.
Why does it say 2-4?
Yeah, because I went 4-2. Evidently, I couldn't get fixed on the redo.
The sheets have been fixed.
No, not my sheet hasn't been. And Mike was 3-3, I believe. So the season standings don't seem to make a lot of sense either. I should be 46, 44-2. No Sox. I don't know.
I feel like I'm going to get
I'm just going to say
here.
44, 44-2 for me. For No Sox, 43, 45-2.
It's a real battle royale here down the
2
stretch,
and 2. I don't know what's
In our Week 17 games, let's kick things off.
Maybe someone's paying attention.
Is today the only Saturday game we're doing, Mr. Morrell? We are, I think, and we'll save that. Wait a minute.
What's the matter?
What's the matter, guy?
So on my page here, I have a little problem here.
Oh yeah,
the records are wrong.
Sorry.
Oh, that's been updated.
It has? Okay.
That's on that one.
Matt, sorry. Much more better. Okay, here we go. One Saturday game it is, and we'll get to that at the end. Tomorrow, 1 p.m., sneaky important game for Paul's Buffalo Bills, who are a 10-point favorite at home against the New York Football Jets. The 4-11 Jets against the 12-3 Bills. Kick us off, please, Paul.
Yeah, I'll take Buffalo. They got to win one of the last two. I don't know if they'll dump this one or the next one, but they only need one win against the Jets or the Patriots to clinch the second seed. I'd say they get it done in this one.
You going to lay that heavy number?
Yeah.
Okay. Michael?
Yeah, I'm going to lay the heavy number 2, but I will say I'm rooting for the Jets. If the Jets somehow pull off a miraculous upset,
you want a better game
and
in
the Bills
Week
come
18.
next week and they got to win it,
Yeah.
I think that's much better.
Okay. Just to dare to be different, I will take the points, although I like the Bills to win the game. Also at 1 o'clock, the 7-8 Mike McCarthy-led Dallas Cowboys take on the suddenly questionable Philadelphia Eagles without Jalen Hurts, and the Eagles are 7.5-point favorites with Wilson Pickett at quarterback. Michael, who's your pick?
Yeah, I'm gonna take Philly still. I just think they got more to play for, and they'll be fired up. Try to do it without Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I think that they will win this game easily, but I am going to take the 7.5 points with the backdoor cover. I think Dallas has been frisky. I think they've won something like 5 out of 6 or 4 out of 5.
They have been frisky.
So I think that they'll continue to play hard, but I'll take the points. And Philly will win.
I'll concur with young Perillo and take the points in that game with an Eagle win. At 4 p.m. tomorrow, and Patriots fans, no excuses for you to not sit in your chair and enjoy a lot of football tomorrow. The sort of still in the playoff hunt 7-8 Miami Dolphins are at Cleveland to take on the 3-12 Browns, where the Dolphins are 4.5-point favorites. Paul.
I'm going to take Miami in that one. Cleveland just no offense to speak of.
Yeah.
Michael?
Hard. I am tempted by Miami playing outside here up north in I guess late December, but I will take Miami.
40-degree weather. It's not cold enough for Miami to completely collapse. I will take the Dolphins, giving the 4.5. The other 4 o'clock game. My guess is this is the game of the day, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The Minnesota Vikings, who are 1.5-point favorites at 13-2, host the 11-4 Green Bay Packers. Good game. Paul?
I will take the Vikings. Green Bay generally does not win when they play teams that are good. So I will take the Vikings.
Is that a trend that I should be following?
They lost to Minnesota. They lost to Philadelphia. They lost to Detroit. I think they'll lose to Minnesota again. They lost to Detroit twice. I think that continues.
Okay. Michael?
I'm going to take Green Bay. All things must end. I think they're playing really good right now.
Yeah, I think I'm going to get on the Green Bay bandwagon for this one as well and try to buck Paul's trend.
Which means I'll lose.
Monday Night
Every
Football.
time I'm all by myself, I lose.
Monday Night Football has the potentially playoff-bound Washington Commanders, who could take on the Eagles. That would be an interesting first-round playoff game. The Commanders are 3.5-point favorite against a team desperate to try to get into the playoffs, and that's the division-leading Atlanta Falcons, who are 8-7. Michael, who do you like in that game?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Commanders at home, but I know, Atlanta fighting for their lives here. I just don't know if Penix can get it done on the road. I'll take Washington.
I'll take Washington also. Really impressed with the Commanders' season in general.
I will too. A couple of schizophrenic teams here, though, and so under the umbrella of dare to be different and try to make some hay where you can and differentiate yourself, I'll take the Falcons in this game against the Commanders, which leads us to the only game on Matt Morrell's board from today, where the 3-12 New England Patriots are getting 6 whole points against the LA Clippers. The Clippers can clinch a playoff spot today with a win here at Gillette Stadium against the Patriots. Deuce.
Yeah, I'm going to take. I don't think the Patriots have got it. I wish I could say I think they keep it close, but I think the Chargers just a little bit need this one. Usually that's the team that's going to win. I'm going to take the Chargers 27-20.
Do we have to put a number on this?
Yeah, I'm with Mike. I'm going to take the Chargers. Unfortunately, the pick that I've made all year, suddenly this line has moved from 4.5 to 6, evidently, today. I had 23-17. Just for the sake of an argument, I'll say 23-16 and give the Chargers the cover.
Competitive in a game performance by the Patriots. But I'll pick, for the purpose of this exercise, the Chargers to win and cover and make the playoffs in the postseason. First year for Jim Harbaugh. We're watching pregame warm-ups here as Drake May throwing there as pregame warm-ups are dialing back a little bit. It'd be nice to see, Mike, I think at the top of the show you mentioned that you'd like to see Drake go off. I don't know if you said it as eloquently as I just said it right there, but you'd like to see some Drake magic today.
Sure, that's
be nice for the hometown fans, wouldn't it?
Yeah, echoing what John from LA said. Just want to see Drake continue to fire away, let them be aggressive with him, and just limit the turnovers. I think that's the biggest thing for me today. If he can get out of a game with just he played pretty well, but he didn't turn the ball over, I think that's a win.
I'm with Mike. He hasn't really done that. He hasn't really gone off. He's had good games, but I would like to see him, throw for 350. Yeah. Something like that, and 3 touchdowns with no blemishes on the ledger. But I think he's had a good rookie year. I think we all can agree on that.
All right, I'm going to jump ahead here a little bit and jump on a topic of conversation that I think, while it might not dominate next week's discussion, I think will be a point of discussion next week. Do they sit Drake May next week against the Buffalo Bills?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's.
Do you need to play Joe Milton next week?
But I'm a little bit tempted just if the Bills got nothing to play for.
I wouldn't.
Well, if it's going to be a JV game, why don't you go all JV?
Because I think you can get your quarterback valuable experience playing.
Okay.
Just in general.
Do you have to worry about him getting hurt in a quote-unquote meaningless game? I do think that topic's coming up next week.
I would say that.
Yes or no? Or do you think I'm crazy?
I think people have been talking about Joe Milton because people say that you have to find out if you have a backup quarterback. Now we have to find out if we have a backup quarterback. I don't really understand that.
I don't think that's a terrible thing to find out if you can in a game situation.
Does it factor in at all just from a franchise
let's just say for argument's sake that Joe Milton plays and he plays lights out. Does that mean you have a backup quarterback?
No, that's
locked it up. Locked up.
So what are we doing?
But is there anything to be said though for having Drake May a draw to the fans that are going to come out here next Saturday and watch a meaningless game, and you want
to split reps?
It's going to feel like a preseason
Don't you do
game.
that next Sunday? Don't do that.
So am I sorry?
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Do you split reps and give them each a half?
No.
Okay.
No.
I wouldn't. I mean, I know Matt, you are in the majority. A lot of people are clamoring to see Joe Milton because you have to find out if you have a backup quarterback.
Right. I'm not clamoring. I'm bringing
a lot
up
of people
question.
are wondering about that. I am not. I don't. Drake May gets hurt.
What do you say to Drake? Why? What do you tell him? Why are we sitting here?
You're all set. You showed everything you have. We just got finished saying he hasn't really done what Mike is looking for yet.
Okay.
10 starts, but
what if he blows doors off today and has that kind of game that Mike's been?
Then can he do it again?
Yeah. Okay.
He's played 10 games.
Yep. No,
he
I
doesn't
know.
need the experience.
I think it's an interesting discussion. I don't want to be the fence
Like
straddler on
I
this
said,
because I can see both sides.
You are in the majority. A lot of people agree with you that it's an interesting discussion. I do not. I don't have any interest whatsoever in finding out if I have backups. I need to find out if I have starters.
Okay, I guess.
And I don't. And I'm sorry, I'm not convinced after 10 games that I have the guy. Like, he's my starting quarterback going forward. I need him to get as much experience as possible.
I agree.
I don't. I'll worry about the backups later. If you get to OTAs next year and you're like, it doesn't look like he's really progressed much, you got to go out and get a veteran backup.
Don't you think they're going to get
like every other team?
Don't you think they're going to get a veteran backup anyway?
I mean, ideally, no. I get the fans thing. Like, that's an advantage to not have to go out and spend $5-6 million on a veteran backup quarterback. If Joe Milton can be the guy, but if they get to, you know what I'm saying? Like they'll have him in the offseason program. He'll be here in April, and when they get started, and they'll do all their film study, and they'll be in the rooms, and they'll get out and do on-field work. If he can't do it, they'll know, and you go out and get a backup quarterback.
Yeah. It's not the same, but I thought it was interesting. They come from the same school. So who's the kid that preceded Milton to Tennessee? Hooker?
Yeah, Hendon Hooker. Yeah.
So Detroit just went out and got a veteran guy because they're a little bit worried as to what happens if Goff goes down.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think they're doing it just to be nice to Teddy Bridgewater. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably more because Hendon Hooker hasn't played much football.
And I like that kid.
He
Hooker,
tore his
by the way,
ACL.
too. Right.
But yeah, I mean, I do think it's similar, and I think that's what you'd do if you felt like you didn't have enough depth at quarterback, is you'd make a signing like that.
Yeah.
Now, I personally don't feel any better about Teddy Bridgewater playing than I do Hendon Hooker.
The guy who's been with the team the entire year, you'd like to think he's got
plus,
the
I just think Teddy Bridgewater's career ended, unfortunately, with that horrific injury that he
Yes.
suffered.
Right.
I don't think he's ever been the same since.
I don't know, Paul. I think that when there's not a lot of subjects to discuss as we look into the Buffalo game next week.
That's going to be one.
I hate to say it.
Right?
Yeah. And I
just put your Kobe back in. Matt
I want to
nails
get
that
a little bit in front of that one.
See?
A little bit.
Matt and I, Mike, you should learn from us. We like to give you the narrative ahead of time.
I know.
Anybody could tell you what the narrative was.
No, I love
Matt
when
and
you
I
do that.
tell you what it's going to be.
I also love sometimes when I randomly stumble upon, which you're like, Mike, that's
you
gonna be it next week. That you're on it this week.
All right, Paul, I'm going to ask a favor, please, with your hands on keyboards. Would you pull up the finalists, the 15 finalists, please, for the Hall of Fame, unless you can remember off the top of your head. I just saw on the crawl, I saw Eli and I saw Antonio Gates. You can book those guys. They're going into Canton this year. Count them both in, first ballot. Does our guy AV get in, or is he going to get stiffed?
I think he's the greatest kicker in NFL history.
Well, I don't think anybody. I think everybody agrees on that one, Mike. But is somebody going to sit there and go, the kicker doesn't deserve to be in?
I mean, if we're being honest, I look at that group of guys, and I would. I mean,
all right, in alphabetical order: Eric Allen,
no;
Jared Allen,
no;
Willie Anderson,
no;
Jari Evans,
no;
Antonio Gates,
yes;
Torrey Holt,
no;
Luke Kuechly,
no;
Eli Manning,
yes;
Steve Smith.
I think I need to look at his stats. I think Steve Smith's a pretty good player.
Terrell Suggs.
I think Suggs is getting in.
Fred
Yes.
Taylor.
No.
Adam Vinatieri.
Yes.
Reggie Wayne.
Yes.
Darren Woodson.
No.
Marshall Yanda.
So Woodson and Harrison are kind of knocking each other out there, and Woodson gets a nod. Kind of interesting there that he gets in and he doesn't. So Steve Smith versus Reggie Wayne. Who goes? Reggie Wayne, right?
I would take all three of those receivers:
Yeah.
Steve Smith, Torrey Holt, Reggie Wayne.
How many are going in? Only 6 can go in, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how they do it, but I think all three of those guys are Hall of Famers. I don't care the order.
Yeah.
Like,
Gates,
I'm just telling you,
Manning,
like
Smith.
Eric Allen to me never struck me as a Hall of Famer.
No.
Jared Allen, he did. He struck me as a Hall of Fame player. Willie Anderson, I don't know enough. Jari Evans, I know these guys have 1 million Pro Bowls and All Pros. Sure, let all the linemen in. Terrell Suggs, absolutely Hall of Famer.
Gates.
Antonio Gates, no brainer to me.
Yep.
Eli Manning wouldn't be for me. I know he's going in.
I'm not
naive.
The New York media will carry him in.
I'm not naive, but
With
isn't
rose
there only
petals.
one New York guy?
Doesn't matter.
Oh.
They'll influence the room.
They're very loud.
They'll influence
Because
the room.
everybody loves New York.
Right.
Let's hear it from
I
you.
think AV is going to have an uphill climb, it looks like here.
I think he's in.
I hope you're right. All right. So in just a few minutes, the 3-12 New England Patriots with a chance to spoil today. The Chargers' playoff hopes will take on the Los Angeles Chargers. Jim Harbaugh in year one has got the team right on the cusp of the playoffs. And while the Patriots are looking to be spoilers, can Drake May play a clean game today? That would be something to look for that we hope we could talk about in the postgame show. For Mike Dussault, for Paul Perillo, my name is Matt Smith. We thank everybody behind the glass on the pregame show. We'll see you after the game to dissect and analyze the entire thing.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check Patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.